dark sorceress Darl comes to the conclusion that she needs to hire an assistant. Flipping through the book filled with all sorts of magical offerings, she paused to dream about owning something truly worthy of a real mage, perhaps a golem or a gargoyle. The price tag on the golem caught her eye and left Darl astonished by just how expensive it was. Understanding the stakes, Darl knew that a weak assistant would do her no good. Such a choice would invite scorn from fellow mages, diminishing her own standing. In her eyes, only an assistant capable of embodying the true strength of black magic was worthy of the role. After closing the book, Darl resolved to summon either a goblin or a devil mage, planning to replace it later. Without much hesitation, she picked up the phone and called the monster delivery company. Worth mentioning, Darl owned her own magic shop, and that was precisely where she was at the moment. Annoyance flickered through her as she realized someone planned to send her slime. After all, she was a dark sorceress. In her opinion, a proper assistant should at least be a kobold or a fairy. Therefore, Darl promptly resolved to return the slime without expecting any payment. At that moment, a slime entered the shop, announcing its arrival from the monster store with an order. Darl quickly apologized, explaining that an unfortunate mistake had occurred. Meanwhile, Sliz introduced himself with calm confidence, assuring everyone that he would do everything in his power. Darl found Climb incredibly attractive, and for a fleeting moment, her resolve to turn him away faded from her mind. Drawing closer to the slime, she inquired whether it possessed the potential to become intelligent. At first, Darl jabbed her finger at the monster, then followed up with a solid punch. A sudden wave of dark sloth washed over Darl, carrying a sense of peril. While the slime gathered itself after the unexpected blow, Darl drifted into contemplation, her thoughts swirling around the ominous sensation. The girl inquired about the slime's level, and it seemed to admit it had only reached the second one. Next, Darl wanted to know if it possessed any special abilities, but the slime confessed it had none. The monster assured her that determination mattered most. With that, Darl agreed to continue with the interview. The slippery creature settled onto the chair, brimming with determination to answer all of Darl's questions, and successfully passed the interview. The girl, in contrast, had originally existed with the traits of a slime. Her race level was 2, lacking any notable skills. The extent of her magical power remained unclear. Hiding her face behind the tablet, Darl realized that she simply could not bring herself to use the slime. Meanwhile, the slime chose to show off its strength by flexing its biceps and confidently announcing its ability to carry things. Deciding to put her curiosity to the test, Darl carefully gathered the slime from her cheeks and began to stretch them out. Realization dawned on her that stopping was simply not an option. Reminding herself to remain calm, Darl cautioned against letting the slime overwhelm her feelings. A realization struck her. Choosing someone with similar traits would only lead to rejection from the other mages. Amazement filled Darl as she observed how far the slime could stretch. In the end, she managed to defeat the creature. For a few fleeting moments, the slime held its altered form before gradually returning to its original shape. Shock coursed through her, but the realization soon settled in. This was a challenge she couldn't refuse. Resolute, she made up her mind to accept it. Soon after, Darl found herself seated at the table, her head cradled in her hands, quietly contemplating the fact that she had, after all, chosen to accept the challenge this time. The fact that the black mage had hired this slime led Darl to believe there must be a significant reason behind it. Some insisted that Darl had a fondness for cute things, despite her reputation as a dark sorceress. Yet now, a single thought tormented her. She simply could not endure it any longer. At that moment, Darl announced that the girl would now conduct a medical examination. She approached the slime and asked it to raise its arms. The slime obeyed without hesitation, lifting its arms as requested. During this examination, Carolina hoped to uncover the reason she had chosen this particular boy. Beyond his charm and exceptional gentleness, something else drew her in. Once more, the girl tried to calm herself, silently repeating that this was only a medical examination. She squeezed the slime again, catching it off guard just as before. Refer to this section when searching for any justification to hire this young man. A sudden chill crept over her as she noticed the slime felt a bit cool to the touch. So she decided she would simply relax whenever the slime was nearby. In that moment, Darl made up her mind. There is nothing wrong with using a cooling device, even for a dark mage. In this situation, the young woman could have simply explained that she had rented an air conditioner. Once the so-called medical examination ended, the girl immediately found herself looking for an excuse to touch the slime. As the slime busied itself with the dirty work in Darl's workshop, the girl wrestled with her thoughts, desperately searching for a solution. Realization dawned on her. The slime was irresistibly adorable, making it impossible to leave without touching it. Yet the memory of already completing the medical examination lingered, leaving her uncertain. Suddenly, a clever idea sparked in her mind. Realization dawned on her. She could simply assign the slug a difficult task. That way, the girl would be keen to watch her adorable little helper hard at work. Without hesitation, Darl set her plan into motion. She approached the office and asked the slug if he was in his room, receiving a confident yes in response. Then, she traced her finger along the surface, searching for any trace of slime that would give her a reason to scold him for his untidiness. The girl's finger gleamed, not a speck of dust in sight. Darl stood amazed, unable to grasp how this child had managed to clean everything so flawlessly, without leaving behind a single hint. Faced with this situation, the young woman resorted to desperate measures, summoning the power of black magic to truly test the slime. With a swift flick of her fingers, she conjured a barrier right in its path. The slime stumbled over the sudden obstacle and dropped the box of flowers it was carrying. Upon landing, the slime loomed ominously over the box, before casting a sympathetic glance toward Darl. A sense of satisfaction washed over her as she celebrated her small victory. With a playful remark, she called the slime foolish and eagerly resumed squeezing it in her hands. Moved by the flurry of emotions she had witnessed, the girl found herself wondering why the slime had chosen to work in this particular shop. At that moment, the slime reached into his pocket and produced a unique scroll, carefully unrolling it before reciting its contents. He expressed his admiration for Darretz's corporate culture and deep empathy. Yet the meaning behind Slime's words remained a mystery to her. In contrast, Slime insisted on his desire to grow alongside this group. Such was the reasoning he offered. Darl took a moment before posing another question. With curiosity, she asked, "Slime, what kind of corporate culture do you have?" Her question caught the slime off guard, leaving it silent and unsure how to respond. The girl noticed that if the slime failed to answer the question within 3 seconds, something intriguing would happen. Meanwhile, Slime frantically searched his sheet of paper, hoping to find the information he needed. As soon as Darl finished counting, sweat trickled down Slime's face. The answer to the question continued to elude him. Darl pointed out the complete lack of corporate culture in the store, then absent-mindedly resumed squishing the slime in his hands. The slime, unimpressed, simply called him a fox for his behavior. Soon after, attention turned to scrubbing every nook and cranny of the shop. This time he straightened up, pressed himself against the surface, and peered into the cracks, carefully clearing them out. After a weary exhale following his exhausting labor, he returned to his former self. Watched the scene unfold with profound astonishment. The girl had always dismissed the slime's shape-shifting abilities as useless, despite knowing about them. Only now did Darl begin to realize just how flexible and adaptable the slime's structure could truly be. Darl inquired after her partner's well-being, receiving only a brief affirmation in response. Without hesitation, the girl requested that he organize the contents of the box. The slime slithered into the drawer, fitting itself neatly inside, while Darl closed the door behind it with a gentle push of his foot. Lime immediately started knocking on the door, proclaiming he couldn't get out while Darl held it shut with her foot. Realizing her mistake, the girl apologized and explained that the slime couldn't get out simply because the door was stuck. After her explanation, Darl moved her foot away, and the door swung open. The slime tumbled out of the box, its eyes brimming with tears. A wave of joy washed over her as the chance to interact with the slime returned. With a gentle determination, the girl offered words of encouragement to her partner, urging him to stay strong and hold back his tears. As evening settled in and the slime finished its task, Darl offered words of praise. The young woman invited the slime to join her for dinner and expressed curiosity about where it would spend the night. The royal figure mentioned the dangers lurking in the area after dark, subtly suggesting that the only safe place to spend the night was in her own chamber. Despite her hint, the slime politely declined, assuring her that such arrangements were unnecessary. Sliz pulled out his favorite special pot, the one he always used for sleeping. Curiosity flickered in Darl's eyes as he wondered aloud if sleeping in such a pot could really be comfortable. Sliz explained with pride that the pot was so sturdy, not even a dragon stepping on it could break it. In that moment, a trace of disappointment flickered across Darl's face. After some time, Darl readied himself for bed and sat quietly on the edge of his mattress, half expecting something unusual to unfold. A sudden knock at the door interrupted the stillness. The door creaked open to reveal Slime, who entered with a clear look of worry etched across his face. He explained that his slippery pot had gone missing and asked Darl if she had seen it anywhere. Darl replied that she couldn't recall ever seeing it around. On the other hand, summoning a phantom spirit to the deck offers an effective way to eradicate the slime entirely, as ghosts tend to appear during this time of day. These tales sent the slug scurrying away, trembling with fear. Nevertheless, she made up a bed for him and invited the slime to spend the night there. The offer brought a smile to the boy's face. The slime expressed its gratitude to Darl and slipped quietly beneath the bed. Darl turned to the slime with a hint of surprise, wondering if the spot under the bed truly suited it. The slime replied that it found the place quite excellent. However, the girl pointed out that it seemed far too cramped and that the slime shouldn't force itself to stay there. The slime explained that it enjoyed confined spaces. Disappointment washed over Darl as, once again, she failed to touch the slime. The following day, Darl settled at her desk once more, lost in deep thought. A thought crossed her mind about how slugs prefer tight spaces, and she realized her mistake. She should have considered this trait, taking note of the hint on the sign. At that moment, Darl made up his mind to push the slimy jar away, distancing it from the harshness of the modern world. Soon after, the girl snapped her fingers once more, prompting the slime to emit another wet, echoing smack. Darl glanced over to where the slime had been, but found nothing except a damp patch marking its absence. Fear gripped Darl as she clung to the hope that this was no more than a prank. Uncertainty clouded her mind. Whether such a spell even existed, or if it could actually work, remained unclear. The thought lingered that perhaps all of this was happening simply because he was a slime. Darrow hurried over to the damp spot left behind by the slime, silently hoping it was nothing more than a harmless prank. At first, the girl caught sight of a strange slime reflected before her, but she dismissed its presence without much thought. At that exact moment, her partner dropped from the ceiling and landed directly on top of her. Realization dawned on the slime. It recognized its surroundings and immediately began wriggling out of Darl. After offering his apologies, he explained that he had unexpectedly become stuck on the ceiling. Through a veil of angry tears, her gaze fell upon the slug, startling it with the intensity of her emotion. With all her strength, the girl threw her arms around the slime in a joyful embrace. Meanwhile, the old man chuckled heartily and admitted he had only been joking. He clarified that the boys were free to return the robot if it didn't suit their needs. This revelation caught Darl off guard. The old man then mentioned that, as a skilled golem craftsman, he carried his own pride. Vero reassured the slime with gentle words, urging it not to worry while continuing to apologize. Lingering for a moment longer in the warmth of the embrace, the slime finally turned its attention to the girl. Relief washed over the girl, her heart light with happiness knowing her slime was safe. Darl, a black witch, established her shop atop a sheer cliff. Fascinated by beautiful things, she often found her pride as a master of dark magic kept her from admitting her true feelings. Favorite food and slime. One night, Darl found herself deep in thought, realizing that ever since the slime had begun handling its tasks, her chances to touch it had grown scarce. With her magic already spent, she felt at a loss for how to change things. A sudden knock echoed at the door once more. Another slime had arrived, having frightened himself by reading a scary book and now unable to fall asleep. He quietly asked his mistress if he could spend the night by her side. Joel could hardly contain his joy. She made just one request. Slane was not allowed to sleep under the bed. As for Slane, he remarked that he much preferred sleeping right next to the girl anyway. With nothing more to be done, Darl suggested that the slime approach the girl. The slime eagerly rushed into her arms, but the girl found no joy in this unexpected embrace. The situation proved more complicated than it first appeared. Under the bed, the slime slept peacefully, undisturbed, while everything that happened before had only played out in Daryl's dream. Sliz and Darl settled down for breakfast. After placing the dishes on the table, the girl received a grateful nod from Sliz, who wasted no time and began devouring the meal with remarkable eagerness. Observing this, Darl gently asked Sliz to slow down and avoid consuming everything at once. Afterward, the young woman mentioned her plans to go shopping later and asked the slime if there was anything he wanted to eat. The slime expressed a desire to try marmalade, a request that took Darl by surprise. Realizing she wouldn't have to make the marmalade after all, a brilliant idea suddenly sparked in Daryl's mind. Summoning the slime to her side, she softly admitted to having received something from their guest the day before. As she spoke words of encouragement, the girl extended a small pouch and offered it to him. Peering into the pouch, the slime discovered a mountain of jelly candies inside. Yet she pointed out that the slime now had jelly candies inside, his favorite treat. Witnessing how much joy this gift brought him, Dorero felt her own happiness rise. Letting him know she needed to step away for a little while, she left with a light heart. After she departed, the girl requested the slime to remain in the shop a little longer. Obediently, the slime stayed behind and waved farewell to Darl. As the girl departed, the slime peeked into its pouch, and with a joyful little dance, it pulled out a piece of marmalade. Without a moment's hesitation, the slime swiftly popped the jelly into its mouth. Clearly, something had gone awry. The slime quivered from head to toe after swallowing a piece of jelly that Darl had handed over. At that moment, his gaze lingered on the slime. Thoughts raced through Daryl's mind as he observed the slime, which managed to eat and work at the same time. During this curious scene, the slime turned to address its mistress. Spotting the girl, he hurried over and wrapped her in a gentle embrace. Sliz reminded Darl that he needed to wait until the work was finished before leaving. In the end, everything turned out just as Darl had planned. The slime and the thief rat. The following day, Darl noticed a discrepancy in the numbers over the past 3 days. This odd inconsistency piqued his curiosity, suggesting that a thief had found their way into the shop. No trace of doubt clouded his mind, and meanwhile, the slime let out a sudden sneeze. The thought crossed the girl's mind, causing her to wonder whether thefts occurred while the shop remained open or only after it had closed for the day. Quite unexpectedly, Darl caught sight of a rat scurrying by with a small bag slung over its back. Right before his eyes, the theft was unfolding that very moment. The girl stared in disbelief as the rat made off with its prize, its boldness completely unexpected. In silent hope, she willed the carefree slug, humming and sweeping the shop floor, to notice the rat quietly creeping up behind him. Darl recognized the problem, yet felt no desire to touch the rat or rely on magic. Instead, she decided to entrust the matter to the slime. Without hesitation, Darl alerted her companion to the thieving rat lurking behind him. The slime turned, spotted the culprit, and Darl promptly ordered it to catch the thief. The slime froze in place. Watching her assistant closely, Darl began to wonder if something might be wrong. Without warning, the slime lunged forward, knocking the rat off its feet. Rising to his feet with a triumphant shout, he held the rat aloft and declared the thief caught. Yet the rat had no intention of surrendering. Summoning its strength, it bared its teeth and prepared to bite into the slime. The thief bit down on the frightened slime, causing it to tumble to the floor, while the rat scurried away in a panic. At that moment, he rushed over to the slime, eager to make sure she was all right. Though the slime insisted everything was fine, Darl couldn't help but notice tears streaming down its face. In the end, Darl realized just how fragile this slime truly was. There was also a special technique. The next morning, Darl awoke to the sounds of commotion outside his window. Confusion settled over him as he tried to make sense of what was happening beyond the glass. Stepping onto the balcony, the girl found herself gazing at a breathtaking scene. A tiny droplet of slime diligently performed squats, while Darl watched in bewilderment, unable to fathom why the creature had chosen such an activity. This time, the slime started doing push-ups. Darl concluded that losing to the rat had affected the slime so deeply, it was now determined to train and grow stronger. Lacking much progress with push-ups, Lime shifted his focus to abdominal exercises. Even for a slime, these proved challenging, but persistence kept him pressing on, determined to improve. Weighing the situation carefully, it became clear to him that the most vital thing in this moment was to focus on Slime's feelings. At that moment, the slime embarked on a new exercise. Darl watched with keen interest, completely in the dark about what the slime intended to do next. In an instant, the slime swelled to an enormous size, captivating the girl who watched the spectacle unfold. Unaware of the full extent of Oizen's actions, he could hardly fathom how much the boy had grown. Without hesitation, one girl made up her mind to leap and grab hold of the slime. She clambered over the railing and dropped straight onto the gelatinous mass. Meanwhile, a single thought spun relentlessly in Daryl's mind. How would she explain herself after such a stunt? The girl's plan unraveled unexpectedly. She slipped on the slime, sprang up in alarm, and crashed hard into the bench. In this way, Darrow faced defeat as the slugs watched in astonishment, trying to make sense of the unfolding events. Soon after, the following day unfolded, with the slime searching the shop for the cockroach, but eventually losing sight of it. Despite this, the cockroach had not escaped outside. Sharing this news with Darrow brought a deep wave of concern across his face. The lesson served as a reminder of her importance, yet his thoughts remained clouded with sorrow over the lost cockroach. The slime kept silent, prompting the girl to conclude that it was time to call it a day. A declaration was made that unless the slime managed to catch this cockroach, there would be no dinner. The words sent a chill of fear through the slime. Darl anticipated a difficult search ahead, yet she believed the slime would handle the task well. Meanwhile, she made up her mind to head upstairs. As she stepped into her room and approached the bed, a sudden rustling sound caught her attention, sending a tremor of fear through her. Noticing the rustling behind the curtain, she traced its source there. It turned out the slime had indeed lost track of the cockroach, and this unexpected turn left Darl seething with anger. Realizing that sleep would be impossible now, the girl gazed into the darkness, her mind too restless to find peace. Annoyance sparked in her eyes as she stomped her foot in frustration, blaming the sign for failing to catch the cockroach. Just then, Slime burst into the room, beaming with excitement and proudly announcing her capture of the insect. News of the victory instantly lit up Arrow's face with a gleaming smile. Meanwhile, Slime presented the cockroach to Darl, proudly explaining that he had caught the insect himself. The moment Darl spotted the cockroach, terror seized him. At that same instant, a loud scream from a woman echoed through the shop. Slime and Darl set out for dinner together. While Slime enjoyed his meal, Darl remained quietly seated at the table. Curiosity prompted him to ask their hostess why Darl wasn't eating. Calmly, Darl explained that she simply wasn't hungry. The following day, Darl resolved to make soda jam. With determination in her eyes, she threw herself into the task, quickly setting to work. Special molds from Marmalade awaited her on the kitchen counter, ready for use. All that remained was to prepare the lemon juice and gelatin. Once the mixture was poured into the mold, she left it to cool. In the end, the marmalade was finally ready. While preparing the marmalade, Darl pictured the look of surprise that would light up the slime's face upon tasting it. The thought never crossed her mind that the slime might recognize anything about carbonated drinks. Overwhelmed by shyness, the girl kept the secret that she had made the marmalade herself, yet anticipation filled her as she waited for the chance to present it to the slime. Before long, Darl came across the slime and offered a warm good morning. The girl mentioned that another customer had given her some more jelly candies, and then she passed the small packet to the slime. With a grateful nod to Darl, the slime accepted the treat. Her gaze drifted to Darl, who stood across the room, confused and waiting in silence. The girl offered her slippery friend a piece of candy. Grateful, the slime thanked Darl and eagerly popped a bit of jelly into his mouth. The moment the candy touched its tongue, an indescribable sensation washed over the slime. At last, he admitted that he really enjoyed the marmalade. Delight sparkled in Darrow's eyes as the slime praised her creation, and she decided to let the client know that the treat had been a delicious success. With certainty in her voice, she announced that the client would definitely bring more marmalade. Upon hearing this, the slime could not decide whether to feel happy or not. As darkness wrapped the room, the slime nestled quietly beneath Darl's bed. In the middle of the night, Darl stirred from her sleep, awakening while the slime dreamt peacefully below. Darl's foot gently slipped to the floor, prompting the slime to notice at once and start rubbing itself against her leg. As the slime began to withdraw from the room, a faint clattering sound echoed from behind the door, capturing its attention and halting its departure. The following morning, Darl asked the slime to come over to her for a moment. With a bag in her hands, Darl mentioned that the client had given her jams once more, this time featuring a fruity flavor. In contrast, the slime quickly realized that his mistress had made this jelly the night before and asked her about it, causing a hush to fall over the shop. A wave of panic surged through him as the thought struck. His lies might be exposed, and everyone could already know the truth. Darl ended up running late because of the slime. It turned out the creature had recognized the lingering aroma from the previous night, evidence of when Darl had been cooking. Bafflement swept over him at first. Later on, Darl realized that the Black Mage. Realizing he needed to sway the slime's opinion, Darl searched for a way forward. As the slime expressed gratitude for the jelly, inspiration sparked within Darl, and he decided to make his move. Observing closely, he realized she hadn't prepared that marmalade just for him. Doing so would have been extravagant. Darl assured him that her true purpose lay in researching intricate spells capable of turning mana into a semi-solid form. This method resulted in a jelly-like mixture blended with sugar. At the same time, the young woman pointed out that eating these jelly beans might leave behind a trace of magical energy, a side effect caused by the sorcery itself. The creature paid no heed and soon began to devour Darl's orange marmalade. Still, only a faint sense of relief flickered within Darl, satisfaction coming only halfway as the creature managed to find its way out of trouble. Marmalade jelly crafted by Darl may not be a rare key to friendship, yet savoring it brings a quiet warmth to the heart. No extraordinary events will unfold from tasting it, but its gentle sweetness comforts the soul. Darl and Aslim agreed to keep the shop closed for the day. When morning arrived, Darl awoke to discover she had slept well into the late hours. At that moment, he stepped quietly into the room and asked his hostess if she was all right. Darl assured him she was fine, but added that the shop would remain closed today. Sensing the situation, the slime chose to slip out of the girl's room, leaving behind a parting promise that their paths would cross again. Once the slime disappeared, she turned her attention to her book titled, How to Create a Cure for My Illness. Over time, the girl's condition continued to decline. Completely motionless, she remained confined to her bed, unable to move at all. All he wanted was to understand why the girl had fallen ill. She guessed that perhaps staying up late had taken its toll on her health. Considering this, Darl resolved she needed a nourishing meal. Yet exhaustion left her too weak to prepare any food for herself. Just then, a knock echoed through the room, followed by the door creaking open, and a slimy hand slipped inside. Stepping into the room with a cap perched on his head and a plate in his hands, he announced that he had prepared rice porridge for the girl. The sight of the slime's thoughtful preparations took Darl by pleasant surprise. At the same time, the slime remarked that the porridge turned out to be exceptionally delicious. Darl glanced at his plate and noticed not just the porridge, but also a helping of jam and a scattering of candies. Her hand moved gently over the smooth surface of the creature's slime, a gesture of gratitude for the meal, as she quietly admitted that she was starting to feel a bit better. Willing to try some less than effective cold medicine, she offered the slime its favorite treats. With a gentle smile, she assured her gooey companion that she truly was feeling better. Darl chose to practice her hospitality skills with the slime. The following day, she handed the creature a questionnaire. While the girl asked a variety of questions, the slime responded in turn. At one point, she requested that he indicate which of the plants was of higher quality. The slime pointed out that the plant on the left was distinguished as high grade, while the one on the right was ordinary. She praised Sliznia for his knowledge and asked if he understood the difference in effectiveness between the two types of plants. Sliznia replied that the high-quality plant offered better efficiency. In response, the girl pointed out that his answer was almost correct. In light of this, Darl suggested they practice hospitality together with the slime. Darl would step into the shoes of a customer, while the slime would take on the part of a shopkeeper. Near the entrance of the shop, the girl paused and spoke softly to the slime. With a cheerful stride, Lime hurried over to the guest and politely inquired how he could be of assistance. In addition, he mentioned that each plant cost 30 gold coins. Darl slowed the slime's eager pace, still undecided about making a purchase. She requested to see both the regular and high-quality plants, one after the other. Understanding her wishes, the slime scurried off to fetch the plants. Without any hesitation, he fetched the plants the girl needed. Amazed by the slime's swift response, she asked about the price. The slime calmly informed her that 2 bouquets would cost 65 gold coins. Observing same, Darl noticed an unmistakable brightness in his expression, a joy that seemed to light up his whole face. The girl requested that Slime bring her 3 mandrake leaves, 3 premium herbs, and 2 common ones. Calmly, she mentioned that if Slime failed to complete the task within 20 seconds, there would be a penalty. Realization struck a lave, and without hesitation, she started searching for Darl's order across every terminal. Before long, he managed to show the girl everything and completed his task right on time. Darl offered praise to Slime for a job well done. The girl asked how much it would cost. The question caught Slime off guard. Once the slime realized his mistake, she resumed teasing him with renewed vigor. In truth, the girl felt quite pleased with his blunder, recognizing the opportunity it presented. Now she knew she could turn his error to her advantage. By the following day, the slime immersed itself in the study of magic. Donning a hat and gripping a staff, it began to murmur incantations under its breath. With a powerful shout, the slime raised its staff and aimed it at Darl's bench, yet nothing occurred. Darl entered and asked Slime if he had any plans to blow up their shop. Without noticing the shopkeeper at first, Slime hurried over to confess that he had recently started studying magic. Darl was astonished to hear this, knowing that Slime possessed no mana at all. The slime revealed it had gained a bit of mana by devouring jelly beans. This unexpected confession left Darl even more astonished. Everyone insisted that jelly beans were nothing more than food, and that in theory, they could never boost mana. However, Darl grasped the truth even before she finished her thought. Memories surfaced of the warning Slim received. After drinking the mammal tincture she had prepared for him, someone else's spirit might linger within his body. In that very moment, the girl realized the fault lay with her. Meanwhile, Alan mentioned that once he finished mastering the Great Fireball, he would turn his attention to studying tornadoes, and after that, begin researching meteors. Darl listened to Slime's ambitions and realized with concern that without mana, he would be powerless to act. Searching for a way out of the predicament, the girl turned to the slime and inquired whether it understood that magic relied on more than just mana. She explained that true spellcasting also required a natural talent for sorcery. The slime grew despondent at those words. Sensing his mood, the girl understood his feelings, though wounding him had never been her intention. The realization that the slime possessed a slight affinity for magic brought him a quiet sense of encouragement. In that moment, realization dawned that nothing more could be done, and responsibility now rested on her shoulders. Accepting this, the girl made up her mind to teach the slime a few things. The prospect filled him with genuine delight, and he expressed heartfelt gratitude to his mistress. After much contemplation, Darrow resolved to teach Same the art of magic. She began by handing him a book filled with arcane wisdom. However, Same's magic carried an unpredictable danger. To her surprise, Same admitted he could not read. One evening, Darrell settled in to share a frightening tale with Slime. He spoke of a ghost that once made its home beneath the bed, weaving the story so convincingly that before long, Slime began to feel as if he too was becoming a ghost. Even before the girl had finished her story, a cold tremor of fear had already seized him. At that moment, he announced it was time to go to bed. With a quick good night to the slime, turned away and pretended to fall asleep. At last, the girl warned Sane about ghosts, especially those said to lurk beneath the bed. In truth, Darl simply wished for Sane to sleep beside her instead of taking her usual spot under the bed. The girl felt certain that tonight she would fall asleep with the slime by her side. In her mind, she eagerly beckoned the creature closer, longing for it to curl up in her arms. Yet somewhere in the room, the slime quivered hesitantly, keeping its distance. Suddenly, the girl noticed Lizen opening a drawer and remarked that even in drawers, ghosts could appear. Afterward, Darl suggested that Lizen was welcome to sleep in her room if he wished. Overwhelmed by emotion, Alive couldn't hold back a tear. At that moment, Darl was already thinking of Slime as her Dakin Makuru. Her mind continued to call out for Slime, longing for his presence. Suddenly, something large landed heavily on the bed. Rising quietly from her place, the girl glanced toward the far end of the bed, where a box caught her eye. Sprawled across the bed was a contented slime, radiating smug satisfaction. Restless little creature. That was the last thought that drifted through Darl's mind. Threat arrival of Pakona. The following morning brought a pleasant surprise for Darl. He discovered that Slian had already arranged everything he needed, anticipating his request before he even had the chance to voice it. A wave of embarrassment swept over him as the girl praised Slimane for his outstanding work. Faced with this situation, Darl decided to turn to Slime for help. Delighted by his master's request, Slime announced his willingness to do anything she needed. Darl explained that she had hired a temporary worker since she had to step out for a while that day. With that, she asked Slime to take on the role of mentor and teach the newcomer everything they would need to know. However, uncertainty crept over Slime as he wondered if he was truly up to the task. At that moment, a petite girl stepped into the shop. Stepping through the doorway, she introduced herself as Pakona from Monster Delivery. A fairy by nature, she announced that although her leadership would last only for this day, she would take charge of the shop. Eager to introduce himself to Pakona, he expressed his pleasure at meeting her. Pakona cast a brief glance at the snail, then turned away with an air of pride. Turning to Darl, she mentioned that litter had accumulated in front of the store, but she had already cleaned it up. After expressing gratitude to Pakona, which made the slime feel even more uncomfortable, she smiled and remarked that cleaning was her area of expertise. Lema's expression made it clear that Pakona did not impress her in the slightest. Turning to Darl, he mentioned that he would handle the rest himself as Pakona's senpai. The title seemed to do little to impress Pakona. By that time, Darl was already preparing to leave. Taking care of himself and making new friends became easier for Darl. Bacon and Slime saw him off with cheerful smiles, promising to get along from now on. To the left of Pakona, a determined voice declared a clear intention not to make any new friends today. Fear flickered across the girl's face as she firmly declared her intention to prove to Darl that she stood above the likes of Sliz and deserved her permanent position in the shop. Tona calmly informed him that today would mark Slim's final day. The weight of her words sent a shudder through him. Threat loomed in the air. Pakona arrived as well. At first, Slim requested that Pakona's broom be taken away, but before he could finish speaking, the girl interrupted. She pointed out that she already knew exactly what he was about to say next. Certain that Slime would ask her to grab a broom and sweep the floor, he glanced over with expectation. Surprise flickered in Slime's eyes as he tried to decipher how Pakona had managed to guess his intentions so easily. Somehow the girl grasped the situation. Despite this, Pakona confidently proclaimed herself a marvelous fairy, boasting that she could even predict what Slime would say next. Darl mentioned that after those words, Slime would politely ask her to gather the trash and take it out. Shock washed over Elaine, realizing those were the exact words poised on his lips. Pakona continued, noting that even Slime now looked amazed, unable to fathom how she possessed such insight. With quiet confidence, the girl asserted her certainty about what this shop truly needed. The teardrop remained silent, offering no response. Pakona then inquired if he truly grasped how remarkable she was. Instead of answering, the teardrop quietly asked her to explain what happened after the harvesting. The unexpected questions left the girl bewildered. Without another word, she hurried over to the table and asked Slian to wait for her a moment. The sight of a mountain of scattered papers made Pakona panic. She realized she hadn't written down what to do after cleaning up. It became clear to Pakona that asking Slian what to do next would be awkward and far too harsh. Realizing the need to offer a convincing explanation, Carol felt the weight of the risk. One misstep could mean the loss of 3 days' worth of research. Suddenly, a bruise appeared. Just then, a flash of inspiration struck Pakona, igniting a brilliant idea in her mind. Peering out from behind the table, the hero insisted that the slime had forgotten its next move after gorging itself. Pakona countered, explaining that the slime was actually a bit craftier than it first appeared, only pretending in order to test her. The scene came across as rather pathetic. Realizing that Pakona was uncertain about the next step after the inspection, Aelin decided to explain. He pointed out that the process continued with sorting the collected inventory. Kona nodded, admitting this was exactly what she had intended to say. The earlier tension drew a quiet sigh from Pakona. Managing to maintain her composure, she knew that any slip might have sent her tumbling into a far more precarious and uncomfortable situation. With determination, the girl concluded that her only option was to showcase the true difference in their skills. Pakona announced that it was time to put an end to these childish games. The girl suggested that the time had come to compete for the permanent cleaning position at the shop. In response, Sane energetically began sweeping the counter with his broom. Mona, watching him, let out a quiet laugh. She remarked that using a broom like that was nowhere near efficient. Thanks to my fairy abilities, tidying up becomes a breeze. Kona insisted that her wings were far more than ornamental, claiming that the wind stirred by each beat carried a deeper purpose. With a powerful sweep of her wings, the young woman scattered slime across the floor. She confidently explained that this was exactly how she always swept away every speck of dust in her videos. Tidying up such a large bench happened in the blink of an eye. As the slime shot to the far end of the bench, Pakona insisted that every speck of dust vanished along with it. Rather than inquiring how the slime had managed such a feat, Pakona insisted that a weakling like him could never hope to measure up to her. Slime, the hero who had already managed to stand back up, bore the reputation of a weakling. Despite that, he calmly requested the other to step aside and surrender his place, just as they had agreed. The slime refused to give up so easily. Determined to prove itself, it set out to show the girl exactly which dirty spots it could clean. Squeezing through the narrow opening, he slipped away, leaving Pakona utterly bewildered. Astonishment filled the girl's eyes as she realized this was a unique power of the slime. The narrow gap before her seemed impossible to widen, and she understood escape was beyond her strength. Pakona concluded that the slime's actions were driven by criminal intent. In her mind, there was no doubt that the slime had deliberately created this gap. Without warning, slime shifted into an unusual shape, sparking Pakona's curiosity about what kind of form it could be. Suspicion crept in as she wondered if slime was simply playing a trick on her. Refusing to back down, the girl confidently declared that she possessed even more extraordinary abilities. Determined, she and the slime pressed on with their competition. After some time had passed, Darl returned to the shop. The sight before her left a deep impression, though she chose not to react aloud, her astonishment carefully hidden behind a calm demeanor. Surveying the wreckage of her ruined store, Darl turned to Pakona and Slime to ask what had happened during her absence. Pakona and Slime, however, remained silent, eyes fixed on the floor and their heads bowed. Realizing she would need to have a serious conversation with Slime, Darl steeled herself for what lay ahead. One day, Darl suggested that Slime try serving a customer without any help. Without a moment's hesitation, Slime agreed to the idea. At that moment, a customer entered the shop. From his hiding place, Darl chose to simply wish Slime good luck before focusing on keeping a watchful eye on him, while Slime hurried over to greet the new visitor. A young woman turned out to be the customer. As the slime approached, it immediately inquired how it could be of service to her. The shopkeeper glanced at the slime and an awkward flush swept over her. Despite her embarrassment, a warm impression of friendliness radiated from the creature. The first thing she asked was about the mistress's whereabouts. The slime replied that the mistress was currently away. Realizing that the slime now handled the shop's business, the customer patted the boy's head, her curiosity piqued. The girl then stretched the slime, testing its elasticity. A trace of dissatisfaction lingered in her gaze as she watched. The girl's careless handling of her slime clearly did not sit well with her. At that moment, the client asked the slime what it usually did. the slime replied that it typically spent its time moving objects from place to place. The girl wondered aloud if Slime was strong enough to carry her. With quiet confidence, Slime assured her that he could. Encouraged by his response, she agreed to give it a try. Meanwhile, Darl seethed with anger, deeply offended by their exchange. At that moment, the client had already leaped onto the slime, trusting it to carry her across. After spending a bit more time in each other's company, the girl and the slime eventually said their farewells. Overwhelmed with joy, the slime turned to Darl and inquired about the outcome of her mission. Darl replied that she was still unsure. Noticing Slime's dissatisfied expression, Darl quickly reassured him that the task had been completed after all. Hearing this, a wave of satisfaction washed over Slime. Darl had a deep fondness for good food and fine spirits. That evening, he invited alcohol itself to join him for dinner, yet the night would prove to be far from straightforward. The lizard arranged tiny tents in a circle around the plate of mushrooms. Darl stood puzzled, unable to decipher the gesture's meaning. Gratitude for the meal had already been expressed, yet 2 mushrooms remained untouched on the plate. Confusion flickered across Carl's face as the slime confessed its fondness for devouring anything and everything. The lizard, murmuring an unintelligible response, offered no clear reply. Darl noticed the lizard's clear dislike for mushrooms. Sensing an opportunity, she decided to approach the creature. With determination, she planned to reach out and touch the lizard, intending it as a gentle punishment for refusing to eat the mushrooms. The lizard declared with determination that tasting these mushrooms was absolutely certain. The urge to squeeze the lizard once more remained clearly visible, prompting her to gently remind him not to overdo it. The lizard, on the other hand, declared with resolve that it would taste every mushroom, proudly proclaiming its bravery. Darrow found herself puzzled, never having imagined that eating mushrooms would require such courage. By this point, Zun had already speared a mushroom with his fork. He examined it cautiously, then placed it in his mouth, only to grimace at the taste. The lizard's expression shifted instantly. Satisfaction shone in her features, even as a single tear slid down her cheek. The boy, however, felt only disappointment as the lizard conquered its fears. Meanwhile, the girl was overcome with a sense of inferiority and resolved to take drastic action. Just then, the lizard cheerfully asked Darl if she had noticed him eating the mushrooms. With a slight smile, Darl replied that she had been watching the whole time. Afterward, she scooped up the lizard and hugged it tightly. Lavish praise for the little creature spilled from her lips as she squeezed it close, exalting even this humble being in her embrace. At that moment, Darl noticed one more mushroom lingering on Slug's plate. Pointing it out, he watched as Slug quickly polished off the last bite. Praising the little creature, Darl gathered him up in a warm embrace once again. The trap and the lizard. The following day, Darl asked the lizard to take out the trash. Before the lizard headed outside, the girl cautioned her about potential dangers beyond the door and instructed her to let her know immediately if anything happened. The slime quickly caught on, and Darl decided to keep it for himself. Once the girl had departed, the lizard set about sweeping the shop. In the midst of tidying up, he stumbled upon a plate resting on the floor. The plate, crafted entirely from jelly, took the whimsical shape of a lizard. Without a moment's hesitation, Marmalade lizard lunged at the plate and devoured it. Instantly, another plate laden with marmalade caught its eye further ahead. Glancing around, the lizard spotted countless dishes arranged in a winding trail. The wizard hurried to gather all the jelly candies from the plates, completely forgetting what Darl had told him. One day, a curious lizard stumbled upon an unusual jelly candy, resting beneath an elaborate structure. At the sight of it, a sly glimmer sparked in his eyes. Without hesitation, he resolved to claim that jelly for himself. Research revealed that these structures were typically built for the purpose of capturing someone. Determined to avoid falling into a trap, he reached for the marmalade using a broom, carefully maneuvering it toward himself. Grabbing the broom, he dashed straight toward the trap, paying no attention to the ground beneath his feet. As soon as the lizard reached the jelly, it slipped into a pit cleverly concealed beneath a layer of leaves. At that moment, Darl emerged from the bushes, a broad grin on her face and a shovel in hand. The lizard had already been calling her over for assistance. Reaching the lizard, Darl gently embraced him and reminded him of her earlier warnings about the dangers outside. She had, in fact, anticipated the lizard's every move well in advance. Meanwhile, the lizard puzzled over the incident, unable to figure out who had covered the pit with leaves. All the while, Darl, the true mastermind behind the trap, watched in silence, pretending innocence as she calmly insisted she had no idea who had hidden the opening. Trouble found Slime the very next day while tending the shop. A careless moment sent a box of seeds tumbling to the floor. At that instant, Pakona appeared, as if conjured from thin air. Certain she had just witnessed a serious accident, she stood frozen, her breath caught in the tension of the moment. Determined to put an end to this slippery predicament, the girl decided it was time to inform Darl and bring the matter to a close. After scanning the shop, Pakona realized Darilla was nowhere in sight. Choosing not to rush, she decided to wait quietly for him to arrive. Upon Darl's return, Pakona made up her mind to find work here and become part of the staff. In this situation, Pakona had to shoulder part of the workload. Silently, she wished for Darl to return to the store as soon as possible. As time slipped by, Pakona found herself with nothing to do while she waited for Darl. To pass the moments, she danced in place, trying to entertain herself. Eventually, boredom settled in, and she crouched down, idly tracing shapes in the dirt with a stick. Soon, a wave of drowsiness washed over Pakona, prompting her to lie down right beside the bench. Daryl's voice suddenly broke the silence, warning that sleeping on the ground was risky and could lead to catching a cold. Startled awake by these words, Pakona sat up in alarm, unsettled by Daryl's unexpected presence. Realizing the girl had returned, Pakona sprang up with delight and eagerly prepared to share the sights she had witnessed that morning. She pointed out that the slime had made a serious mistake, leaving valuable goods scattered across the floor. Stepping into the shop, Darl noticed only a box of seeds resting on the spotless floor. In that instant, Pakona realized that during her slumber, the slime had silently erased every last trace of evidence. Meanwhile, for Pakona, the entire experience felt like a strange and vivid dream. Despite this uncertainty, she gathered the courage to confess everything to Darl and offer a heartfelt apology. However, the girl's frustration bubbled to the surface. Determined not to let the significance of this day slip away, she resolved to remember it always. In the depths of the dungeon, a curious slime wandered into a shop and discovered something completely unfamiliar. Turning toward Darl, the slime inquired about the strange item. She calmly explained that it was nothing more than a basement where she kept her valuables and important records. The girl mentioned she needed to pick something up and asked Slime to grab a lantern and accompany her to the basement. Despite a lingering fear, he took the lantern in hand and resolved to lead the way downstairs. On their way down, Darl reminded Sane to tread carefully, mindful of the many valuable treasures surrounding them. Slime ventured into the basement, and what awaited there struck him to the core. At that crucial moment, Darrow discovered exactly what she had been searching for, a golden figurine of a magical beast. The sight of it made statue and sign tremble with fear. The figurine radiated an aura so unsettling that it seemed to fill the entire room with unease. A lingering sense of unease clung to the snail. Peering inside, she informed Darryl that the cellar was shrouded in darkness. Darryl, however, asked Slimak to wait for a moment, and in the next instant, summoned a gentle glow of magic to illuminate the basement. Meanwhile, Alive clambered onto Darryl and squeezed his eyes shut. All the while, he pleaded with the girl to turn on the light faster, oblivious to the fact that Darryl had already done so. Seizing the perfect opportunity, the girl leaned in and wrapped her arms around the slime. With a playful tone, she switched off her light and claimed it simply refused to turn back on. After a while, Darrow gently caressed the slime's frightened face before finally deciding to turn on the light. The girl feigned exuberant delight at the lights being switched on. Meanwhile, Slim had calmed down, and she suggested he pick up the figurine and head back to the shop. The shattered figurine on the floor filled Darrow with a deep sense of despair. Most likely, the culprit was the snail, which had accidentally knocked it over in the darkness. Training and the slime. Before long, Darl resolved to begin teaching the slime magic. She patiently explained that impressive feats like creating massive explosions would not happen right away. Instead, she emphasized the importance of first mastering the fundamentals. At that point, she handed the slime the first section of the fundamentals. As he delved into the material, he admitted he could only understand this initial part for now. With that thought in mind, Darl resolved to speak with Slim about the matter of mania today. The girl insisted that the foundation of magic lay in understanding the entirety of the universe. Curiosity stirred within Slim as he turned to Darl and asked what it truly meant to grasp the universe as a whole. According to common belief, mana serves as the essential energy that fuels all magic. Certain races, such as elves and dwarves, naturally possess mana, while others do not. The type of magic they wield often reflects their heritage. For most, the presence or absence of mana is determined at birth, although rare alternatives for acquiring it also exist. Without warning, Darl decided to present Slime with a special item from their shop, something called the magic nut. She explained that all Slime needed to do was eat it. Grateful for the gesture, Slime thanked Darl sincerely. However, Darl quickly pointed out that the magic nut was not a gift, as its price was far too high. Intrigued, Slime found herself curious about the actual cost of this mysterious nut. Darl chose not to reveal the exact amount, but the young woman noted that this sum could buy a mountain of marmalade. The slime pictured this scene in its mind and found it astonishing. However, Darl clarified that this was only an example and steered the conversation back to the topic of mana. After spending some time on his research, Darl summarized his findings by describing the unique power that allowed the slime to draw energy directly from nature. As her gaze lingered on the slime, the girl noticed a peculiar face forming within its translucent mass. Realization dawned on the girl as she caught the slime in the middle of a yawn, making it clear that learning did not come easily to him. Still, Darl could not ignore the fact that she had stayed in the lesson much longer than she originally intended. Determined to extract every last benefit, Darl pushed the slime to its absolute limits. The girl announced her intention to share a tale of magic with Slime. This story would take time, and Slime was expected to listen until the very end. Without delay, Darl began reading aloud. She opened with the origins of magic, tracing it back to the deeds of a great wizard. Before long, the slime rested quietly at the table, gently blowing bubbles as it slept in peace. Suddenly, the slime awoke to the sight of a cheerful girl beaming down at him. Noticing that he had finally regained consciousness, she rushed over and wrapped him in a hug, scolding him gently for dozing off in the middle of her fascinating story. After some time had passed, the sign decided it was time to put magic into practice. Despite his diligent efforts, Simon urged himself to focus, visualizing and shaping the virtual image of fire just as the book described. At that moment, stepping onto the balcony, Darl witnessed the scene firsthand. Slime concentrated intently, putting all its effort into crafting something out of the ordinary. Eventually, after finishing his training, Sane returned to the shop where Darl awaited him. With genuine curiosity, Darl inquired about the true reason behind Sane's passionate desire to master magic. One of the slimes chimed in, marveling at how genuinely amazing it was. Olive admitted with sincerity that he truly wanted to be useful to Darl. His confession left the girl feeling a bit flustered. The slime asked Darl for permission to join the training. Darl felt a flicker of surprise at Sion's eagerness to practice once more. Yet, unwilling to let the slime overlook anything important, she simply reminded him to stay careful. Left alone with her thoughts, Darl reflected on Slime's relentless training in recent days. Sympathy welled up within her, wishing he would finally awaken his mana and achieve success. Watching his tireless efforts, she realized that, if only Slime possessed mana, his sheer determination would have conquered the fire long ago. At that moment, Darl's gaze landed on a vessel holding a rare fruit from the forest, known to grant mana to anyone who ate it. Memories of the slimes promised to be of use to her surfaced in the girl's mind. Once again, Slime pushed through another round of training, yet failure greeted him just as before. Despair settled in his chest, and tears welled up in his eyes. Just then, Darl's voice drifted into the room. Turning to Slime, she asked if he wanted to take a break. The mention of Darl instantly brightened Slime's mood. Leaning closer, Darl revealed that she had brought some jelly candy just for him. The girl offered Slime a snack, encouraging him to regain some energy for the hard work ahead. Accepting the jelly candy from her, Slime expressed his gratitude with a warm thank you. At her request, the slime consumed the jelly, fulfilling her wish. With another elegant wave of her magic wand, flames sprang to life in an instant. At first, Slime didn't realize he had managed to pull off the trick. Stunned, he stood frozen in surprise while Darl began to applaud. Realization dawned upon the slime that it had succeeded, and a deep sense of satisfaction washed over it. A sense of genuine satisfaction washed over Yo as he assisted Gel. His efforts had truly made a difference. The aroma of a bustling restaurant mingled with the surprising sight of a slime hovering over the stove, preparing lunch for Derida today. Surprised by this turn of events, she questioned the slime about his motives. The slime explained that he simply wanted to give Derida a chance to rest since she always looked out for him. Derida remarked that the gesture was somewhat irritating and expressed doubts about entrusting such an important task to the slime. Tseyu emite yeri, sla krakui, emuzeya videyer Cyrillic letter 456, lz eruku te apiopera esives Cyrillic letter 457, Cyrillic letter 457, peogel ya enute en adives Cyrillic letter 456 air. Peeking into the courtyard, Darl was stunned to discover that Slime had set up a whole restaurant there. In that moment, she realized there would be no escaping him now. Darl gazed at the determined slug and inquired about its plans for feeding her. Meanwhile, the slug slid a menu over to Darl. As Darl took hold of it, he realized just how organized and earnest the slug truly was. As Darl studied the illustration on the menu, curiosity stirred within him about the mysterious dark mixture it depicted. The young woman inquired if Slime would use only high-quality ingredients, avoiding jelly candies and other sweets. Slime assured her that everything would be done according to Daryl's wishes. Faced with this choice, Darl decided to entrust everything to Slime, simply reminding him to handle the fire with care. Within minutes, Slime was already standing over the skillet, preparing a meal. Settling into the seat beside the table, he watched the cooking unfold with keen interest. The image on the menu cast a shadow of doubt in his mind. Still, Darryl noticed that the other slimes followed the correct steps. The girl then speculated that the slimes might have improved their cooking skills, making their food taste better. At that moment, a slime finished preparing the dish and expressed gratitude to Darryl for waiting patiently. In the end, the slime served Darryl a steaming bowl of vegetable stew. Observing the dish before him, Darryl remarked that it looked exactly like the picture. Pleased with the compliment, the slime cheerfully asked Darryl not to make him blush. Turning once more to Darryl, he expressed his gratitude for the daily care and meals she provided. Alim yearned to one day match his mentor's culinary skill, so he resolved to work tirelessly toward that goal. Darryl's face registered surprise at these words. Meanwhile, the slime calmly announced that the girl's total came to 300 coins. On a certain day in the magic shop run by Kairoro, a familiar customer returned once more. She crossed the threshold and without hesitation announced her purpose, to see Slime. As the young woman stepped inside, the cashier greeted her with a warm, welcoming smile. Apologizing, he explained that Slime was currently on a break. A longing stirred within her to absent-mindedly reach out and touch the slime, letting all worries melt away. Yet caution held her back, for the risk remained. The troublesome client could return at any moment. Just then, the client turned to Darryl and asked if she was a black mage. Darryl calmly admitted to being a dark sorceress. The client then mentioned she had suspected as much the moment she noticed the tattoos beneath Darryl's eyes, since all practitioners of dark magic wore such markings. Following these events, the young woman calmly introduced herself as a mage as well, a white sorceress by the name of Shiraru. Panic seized Darrow in that instant. Realization struck her. Should Shiraru discover that Slews served a black mage, Darrow would become a laughingstock. At the same time, Guerrero admitted her astonishment upon discovering Slim working for the dark mage, especially given Darryl's notorious reputation. Moreover, Shiraru admitted a fondness for cute things, which led the girl to believe that she and Darryl might have common ground. At that very moment, Darryl realized she needed to steer clear of this awkward situation to protect her reputation as a dark sorceress. Darryl pointed out that Jororo was mistaken, reminding her that today was only her first day on the job. The girl confessed she couldn't grasp why the shop owner had chosen to hire a slime. She attempted to smooth things over by pointing out that those same lizards were a far better choice than slugs, and if the decision were hers, she would have hired golems instead. Unable to bear the tension any longer, Darl shouted at Shiroro, telling her to buy something and disappear from sight. At that moment, Seimer appeared and, addressing Darryl as master, proclaimed that victory belonged to him. Darryl stood frozen, unable to hide his astonishment. Once more, Elaine turned toward Darryl Hosties, openly admitting how much she had enjoyed everything. By this point, embarrassment and anger had begun to burn fiercely within Darl. Meanwhile, Roro spotted the slippery creature and greeted it warmly. The girl instantly understood what was happening and glanced at Darl with innocent eyes. A laugh escaped Roro as she admitted her disbelief that Darl could have lied to her. To her, the whole situation seemed almost endearing. At that moment, Darl could no longer contain himself and erupted in anger. The following day at lunchtime, Darl apologized to Slime and suggested spending some time playing in the yard while she prepared the meal. This was exactly the move Slime made. Stepping out into the courtyard, a magic wand rested firmly in his hand. Suddenly, a strange plant behind the bench caught his eye. Immediately, the slime began to call out to Darl in a loud voice. Without hesitation, Darl rushed outside, clutching a cooking pot in his hands, and demanded to know what had happened. The girl, catching sight of the strange creature, stood frozen in astonishment. On the other hand, he claimed to have melted. In truth, his body appeared to be somewhere between solid and liquid, as if caught in a half-dissolved state. The people realized that the slime had swallowed one of the berries growing behind the bench. The slime, for its part, admitted to this and even remarked that the berries were exceptionally delicious. When Same wondered if this signaled his evolution, Darrow dismissed the idea, insisting it meant nothing at all. Meanwhile, the girl focused her attention on how the slime might behave in its current condition. Deciding to return the slime to the store, Darryl scooped it up and quickly realized just how challenging it was to keep hold of it. While browsing the store, Darryl pondered ways to restore the slime to its original state. Despite her efforts, no solution presented itself. The realization struck Darl that failing to find the right path would leave her disappointed. Her gaze settled on the melted slime, and as she braced herself to take action, she understood she would have to set things right. Suddenly, a realization dawned on Darl. She could use the slime hardener. Without hesitation, Darl sets the slime down on the table and calmly asks it to wait for a moment. After dissolving the slime in hot water mixed with gelatin, Darl sprinkled in a touch of starch, prompting the slime to exhale with a gentle cough. Now all that remained was to wait a little while for the slime to solidify. Over time, the slime hardened, gradually taking the shape of a small sphere. Realization dawned that the slime had hardened, yet its shape turned out quite different from what was imagined. Meanwhile, the slime simply bounced cheerfully in place. In the end, Darl chose to set the matter aside for the time being. Yet, after a while, Sliz naturally returned to his usual form. The following day, needing some rest, Darl chose to stay in her room. She asked Sliz to watch over the shop and apprehend the thief should he return. Taking his duty to heart, Sliz devoted himself to tidying up the place, making sure every corner gleamed. At that moment, a shadowy figure emerged in the doorway of the shop. At first, Sliz assumed it was merely a thief, but with a calm certainty, he declared that this stranger was no match for him. It turned out to be just a boy. The sight of him took the slime by surprise. The moment Slim appeared, the boy quickly asked if he was there to lend a hand and whether he had come alone. Slim replied that his mistress had stepped out for a while. Hearing this, the stranger, whose name was Darrow Carls, turned to Slim with curiosity and wondered aloud how Slim might react if a thief ever showed up. Eventually, he simply reassured everyone, saying that everything was under control and that he would handle it. Yet, rather than taking action, the boy chose to share a curious story with Slimo. The moment the boy admitted he was the thief, a wave of astonishment washed over Slima. Meanwhile, the stranger reached for the vial on the shelf, boldly declaring his intention to steal it. Slim dashed after the thief, his voice pleading for him to stop. Despite these efforts, the stranger remained stubborn, refusing to slow down. The slime refuses to calm down, loudly calling out to the stranger and begging him to stop. The stranger pressed on without hesitation, already weighing potential buyers for that vile substance. Meanwhile, Darl, drawn by the commotion, stepped out onto the balcony from an upper floor. At the sight of the girl, the stranger froze in astonishment. Turning to Darl, the girl explained that her assistant was grabbing something. In that moment, Darl immediately recognized the stranger. It was his older brother. With tears shimmering in her eyes, Alchard, the slime, pleaded with Darl, insisting that his older brother had acted wrongly by stealing their cherished jug. Annoyance flared within her as she watched her brother torment her beloved slime. The young woman asked the slime to wait below, determined to confront her brother on her own. The boy immediately started mocking Darl for hiring a slime. Oblivious to how much his sister liked the creature, he kept making jokes. Darl, meanwhile, asked his brother to stop. The girl explained that a mistake had occurred in the Monster Management Center, and she had been too busy to fix it. I insisted that he understood the girl, especially since she seemed so absorbed in her tasks. Still, the mystery lingered in his mind. Where had all the visitors disappeared to? On her end, curiosity focused solely on the reason her brother Vlad had chosen to show up. Vlad stopped by simply to check on how his younger sister was doing. With genuine concern, he reassured her that worry had gripped him ever since his dear little sister had left home so unexpectedly. A voice inquired whether the girl intended to return home. Darl responded firmly, her decision clear, a resolute no. Darl paused to wonder how Vlad had managed to find her, and he replied that love had guided him to this place. Darl's disapproving gaze caught Unak's attention. Realizing the entire situation, he made up his mind to keep the truth from his sister, unwilling to risk Darl's hatred. Afterward, Vlad inquired if he might visit his younger sister from time to time. With a reluctant expression, Darl acknowledged that Vlad did have that option. With a sudden change in tone, he mentioned that his only reason for coming was to see the slime. A smirk played on the boy's face as he mocked Darl, doubting that he would ever actually show up to meet her. In light of the situation, Darl chose to remind her brother that he had stolen the bank from her and now owed her compensation. The amount in question came to $50,000. At that moment, Vlad's amusement vanished. One day, Darl encountered an unexpected dilemma brought to her attention by the slime. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, she turned to the slime and asked if it knew how to resolve the issue. The root of the problem became clear. Darl's shop had only just opened its doors, and foot traffic was scarce. Leaving things as they were was not an option. Determined to turn the situation around, Slime set out to do everything possible to attract more customers. The realization struck her that she had just run away from home, and at the rate the store was expanding, she would probably be sent back very soon. Climbing to the top of the cliff demanded every ounce of strength. Darl realized she needed to attract far more attention. At that moment, the young woman suggested that the slime create a brochure. The proposal left the slime so astonished that, at first, the meaning behind her words simply eluded him. Without wasting any time, Darl dove straight into preparing the brochure. Her first task was to pinpoint the location of the store. Just then, the slime called out to her. He mentioned finishing work on the brochure while holding the illustration in his hands. As Darl examined the picture of the slime, surprise crossed his face as he tried to discern what exactly was depicted on the left side. Still, Sliz clarified that what he had drawn was actually a dragon standing guard over the shop on the left. In response, Darl calmly told Sliz that inventing stories wasn't necessary. The girl insisted that Sliz clearly indicate the shop's location and the kinds of goods it offered. Including a dragon, she argued, would only scare away potential customers. While recounting everything to the slime, Darl and Yuhai teamed up to craft a brochure by hand, bringing their vision to life with paints. Pleased with the brochure she had received, the girl made up her mind to recreate it using magic. At that very moment, Slime spoke up, eager to lend a hand as well. The idea didn't sit well with her. She asked Slime to draw the cover illustration and to make it as cute as possible. Understanding dawned on them, so I set to work sketching the cover. After a short while, Darl summoned his magic to conjure several identical copies of the booklet. Slime glanced over at the girl and inquired if the cover art was finished. Slime replied that it was almost done. Darl approached Slime and gently pulled the slip of paper from beneath him. Disappointment flickered across Slime's face as he hadn't yet finished his task. After apologizing to Darl, the girl remarked that what he had drawn was actually quite cute. The slime could hardly believe her words. At the same time, she mentioned that this version was a bit too large for the brochures and asked if she could keep the drawing, noting how much effort Slime had put into it. Slime gladly agreed. In that case, Darl Gun placed the drawing of the slime on her desk and set off to gather herbs alongside him. One day, Pakon unexpectedly returned to take up a position at Darl's shop. The sight of Pakon startled the slime so much that it jumped in fright. Carol simply asked Slane to accept what she was about to give him. Kona handed him a folded piece of paper, then hurried off, calling back that she would wait for Sline at the designated spot. Sline examined the paper, but the writing was impossible for him to decipher. Before long, Pakona found herself in the depths of the Matango forest, the very place she had mentioned in her letter inviting Sline. Thoughts swirled in his mind about how her earlier battle with the slime had complicated things for Darula. Still, an open field as the arena would erase those concerns. The reason Pakona chose to spend the entire day in this forest remained a mystery. After some time had passed, Pakona curled up, exhausted and waiting. The slime still had not come to her. Convinced that victory belonged to her since the slime never appeared, the girl decided it was time to head back home. With this thought, Pakona turned and began her journey back. Unfortunately, the girl had promised the slime she would keep in touch, since he had disrupted her plans for the day. The young woman wandered through the forest, searching in vain for a path that would lead her home. A wave of confusion swept over Danya as she tried to figure out the way back. During this uncertain moment, the girl held a lantern in her hands, its gentle light offering a small sense of guidance. Suddenly, the lantern went out, leaving the girl alone in the impenetrable darkness of the forest. Hysteria gripped Mona as the snowman ran out of fuel at such a remote spot. Anxious thoughts crowded her mind, while her imagination conjured up terrifying images of the monster from the book, the one that emerges in the forest after dark. At that moment, a shadowy figure emerged from the bushes. Terror seized Pakona, her legs giving out beneath her as a scream tore from her lips at the sight of that eerie shape. Fortunately, Darl stood before her, a reassuring presence. The moment he spotted Pakona, he immediately asked if she was all right. Hansi and Darl noticed as Pakona suddenly burst into tears. Enormous relief washed over him when Darl found her, especially since the girl trembled with fear. An apology was offered to Pakona, along with an explanation that the slime hadn't been able to read the letter she had given him. Just then, the slime appeared behind Darl and personally asked the girl for forgiveness. Pakona noticed him, quickly wiped away her tears, and insisted that she hadn't been crying at all. Through her tears, Darl confessed that she wasn't actually frightened at all. She had simply eaten a poisonous mushroom by accident. Kona admitted that she couldn't hold back her tears, insisting she felt fine and blaming it all on the mushrooms. Just then, Same rubbed his eyes and began to sob as well. Relief washed over Darl as he saw Pakona safe and sound. Content that everything was well, he turned and made his way back to the store. One day, Shiroro returned to Daryl's shop carrying a present. As soon as she stepped inside, she asked the boys if they had already eaten lunch. All Rora wanted was to have lunch with the guys. Darl apologized, explaining he had already eaten. At that moment, Simon chimed in, mentioning he hadn't had lunch yet. The boys spread a blanket over the bench and settled down, ready to eat. Shiraro mentioned that she had woken up early that morning and prepared something special for them. Sandwiches crafted to resemble slugs rested on the plate, their odd shapes both amusing and strangely appetizing. Delight sparkled in Lime's eyes as she spotted the delicious sandwiches. Not wanting to seem less skilled than Shiroro, Darl quickly announced that she too had prepared something special. At first, the slime merely glanced at the dish, before finally turning to Darl with a word of thanks. Shock washed over her as she witnessed such a subdued response from the slug. Clearly, she had been hoping for something far more dramatic. This time, Shiroro had already started feeding Slim her sandwiches. All Darl could do was watch, seething with anger. A piece of jelly candy was offered to Slane, who hesitated, a hint of embarrassment flickering across his face. Darrow, meanwhile, leaned in closer and told him to open his mouth wide. At the sight of Daryl's expression, the slime recoiled, shrinking back cautiously. Meanwhile, Daryl hastened to reassure the creature, insisting that things were not at all as they appeared. Aurora's laughter rang out as she explained how she had caught sight of Daryl's expression when she asked Slime to open its mouth. The scene seemed utterly endearing to her. Flustered, Daryl protested as loudly as she could, insisting that it was anything but cute. Some time later, Darl returned to her workbench. Soon, the slime noticed something unusual resting on the table and asked about it. Darl explained that it was a metal component used in crafting weapons. She went on to mention that lately, hostile goblins had been appearing from the forest more frequently, causing the demand for weaponry to rise. The girl warned Slime to stay away from the metal object, stressing its danger. Slime promised her he would not touch it. Despite his word, the object unexpectedly circled back towards him. In that moment, unusual noises caught Darl's attention. As the girl turned around, a powerful blast erupted through the store. Nuz hurried over to where the slime had vanished from sight and asked if everything was all right. The slime assured him that there was no need to worry. Upon reappearing, Sliz looked completely transformed. His body gleamed with a metallic sheen, an ominous change that hinted at trouble ahead. Darl motioned for Slime to pause for a moment, then gently reached out and touched him. Realizing that the slime was no longer soft, Darl covered her face with her hands. Glancing down at his hands, Slime realized he had undergone a simple evolution. Joy lit up his face as he started bouncing on the spot, yet Darl gently asked him to calm down. The girl stared at the slime, surprise flickering in her eyes as uncertainty clouded her thoughts. In that moment, the slime addressed her directly. Standing before the massive stone, Sliz caught Daryl's eye. With a single, fluid motion of his hand, he split the rock cleanly in two. Terror gripped her at that moment. All she wished for was a softer side to Sliz, yet now, any hope of making that happen seemed lost to her. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined slime possessing the strength to shatter stone with a single effortless movement. Following hours of searching through dusty tomes, Darl's head snapped up. Her efforts had revealed no way to return the slime to its original form. Rooted to the spot in quiet despair, the girl stood motionless, uncertain of her next move. Darl realized that the slime seemed happy now, even though it had apparently felt more comfortable in its previous form. She knew, however, that if she did nothing, something could go wrong, so she needed to take action. Suddenly, the metal slime addressed her again. With a sturdy club gripped in one hand and a wooden shield strapped to the other, Slime declared with resolve the intention to venture into the forest. Darl struggled to grasp what Slime truly meant. Meanwhile, Slime announced his intention to take on the wicked goblins in battle. The situation had reached a critical point, as Slime had become utterly obsessed with the dream of transforming into metal. Convinced of his own immortality and invincibility, he wasted no time or energy, even now, sparring relentlessly with the empty air. Darl patiently explained to Slime that wandering through the forest carried real dangers. Besides goblins lurking among the trees, bears also called those woods their home. Slime declared his intentions for when a bear appeared, then promptly tapped himself on the head with a magic wand. Meanwhile, Darl silently hoped he would stop waving that thing around. Realizing how precarious things were, Darl knew that the moment her attention wavered, the slime would slip away into the forest. Driven by urgency, she focused on restoring the slime's softness as quickly as possible. Then a brilliant idea suddenly sparked in her mind. A refreshing smoothie awaited Slime, prepared with care. An invitation followed, suggesting they both enjoy a cool drink before setting out for the forest. Slime, eager and without hesitation, accepted the offer. Offering his thanks to the girl, Slime drank the beverage Darl had prepared. Meanwhile, Darl pondered whether consuming the magical fruit that once melted Slime might have transformed him, so she resolved to use it as the base for a new cocktail. After swallowing the cocktail, the slime froze for a brief moment, then a shiver ran through its body, and it called out, its voice tinged with uncertainty. In the blink of an eye, the slime returned to its gentle, soft form. A wave of pure joy washed over Darl, making her feel like the happiest girl in the world. At first, the slime itself seemed unaware of what had just happened. After a while, he settled onto the bench, lost in his own thoughts as his gaze drifted into emptiness. During this time, Darl watched him from a distance, offering only silent apologies in his mind. Inspiration in slime. Since Darl hired the slime, some time had passed and the forest had grown quite safe. Now, the girl decided it was time to assign the slime a new task. After much contemplation, Darl approached Slim and inquired about his availability. Slim turned toward him, and the girl requested that he head into the nearby forest to gather a specific amount of prey on his own. A spark of joy lit up the blind man's face as he welcomed the challenge and assured everyone of his ability to handle it. Without wasting a moment, he set about getting ready and requested Darl to wait for him just a little longer. Once the slime had finally finished forming, a few questions began to stir in Darl's mind. Sliz packed an entire arsenal for the journey. Darl doubted such precautions were really needed, especially with the forest so close by. Still, Sliz insisted everything was for Darl's sake. Time drained their strength, so Darl wondered if it was setting off on a journey. The girl attempted to clarify that he was simply heading to the forest. At that point, Sliz paid no attention to Darl and repeatedly urged her to look at his sword. In response, Darl asked if he was even listening to her at all. Alive, on the other hand, insisted that this sword bore the illustrious name Excalibur, and declared that merely holding it gave him a sense of unwavering safety, even in the face of danger. In truth, the so-called weapon was made entirely of paper and proved to be remarkably fragile. Meanwhile, Slime eagerly listed all the items he planned to take into the forest. Dollar watched him, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. This time, Slime presented the girl with a compass. Dollar approved of his choice, recognizing the compass as a particularly useful tool. Slime explained that by following the red needle, one could reach any desired destination. At that moment, Darl quietly retrieved the compass. Slime displayed the next set of items he intended to take along. Though they appeared to be nothing more than ordinary pieces of metal, he assured her they pointed the way forward. Gazing at the slime brimming with enthusiasm, she chose to remain silent so as not to interrupt. He spoke passionately about his traps and the assortment of odd trinkets he had gathered. After a short while, Simon announced that he was ready to set off on the journey. The backpack weighed so much, its bulk anchored it firmly in place, leaving the slime unable to budge it even an inch. In contrast, Darl realized he had overpacked, burdening himself with more items than he truly needed. Grass and slime lay scattered about. Before the slime set off toward the forest, Darl asked if he would be all right on his own. The slime assured him, explaining that with Excalibur for protection, there was nothing to fear. Darl then described the path, instructing the slime to head straight ahead after leaving the shop to reach the forest. Zero also asked Sign to gather some herbs from the forest edge, emphasizing the importance of staying out of the woods, as danger lurked deeper within. As Slime moved farther away, a lingering sense of worry troubled Darl, for the distance between them had been uncomfortably close. Eventually, the boys exchanged farewells, waving to each other before parting ways. At the start of his journey, Slam strode along with a cheerful tune on his lips. Suddenly, his gaze caught a swift dragonfly darting past, capturing his attention. Slam drew his paper sword and lured the dragonfly towards its edge, coaxing it closer with slow, careful movements. At last, Slam accomplished his goal and began to observe the insect with keen fascination. After a short while, the slime paused for a brief rest. Refreshed by a meal and a drink of water, it gathered its strength before setting off on its journey once more. After a brief rest, Slime bounced up, grabbed his backpack, and set off down the road, softly humming a cheerful tune. Before long, he reached the edge of the forest. Deep within the forest, Slime at last discovered the very herbs he needed, and a joyful mood welled up inside him. While approaching the patch of grass to collect herbs, Slime suddenly caught the odd murmur of unfamiliar sounds nearby. Glancing up, he found himself face to face with a gigantic beetle crowned with massive horns. Before long, Slime returned to the shop, announcing his arrival with cheerful shouts. Darl greeted him warmly and immediately inquired whether everything was all right. The girl then suggested that Slime show them what he had found. Taking her cue, Slime set about unpacking his backpack. From his pocket emerged the very same Hercules beetle he had discovered in the forest. Undeniably, his mood soured at the sight of that enormous beetle horn. Moments later, a woman's piercing scream echoed throughout the shop. The The following day, Darl once again entrusted the shop to the care of the slime and stepped out. Watchful and attentive, the slime managed every corner of the store with meticulous precision. At that moment, Vlad appeared once more. He spotted Slim and calmly asked if he was alone. The sound of Vlad's voice sent a jolt of fear through Slim, making him instantly uneasy. Upon recognizing Daryl's brother, he raised his voice, warning everyone that Vlad was a danger to them all. Vlad inquired about Daryl's whereabouts, turning to Slim for answers. Slim, however, refused to share any information. Choosing patience over confrontation, Vlad decided to wait quietly for Darl to arrive. Vlad decided it was time for some fun with Slime. He boldly announced his plan to steal something, calling himself a villain in the process. Upon hearing those words, Slime calmly announced that should Vlad attempt to steal anything, he would unleash his magic without hesitation. The mention of such magical powers sparked clear surprise among those present. Curiosity sparked within Vlad as he sought to uncover whether a slime could truly wield magic, a feat not easily achieved. The slime, brimming with confidence, insisted it possessed the necessary talent, but skepticism lingered in Vlad's mind, urging him to witness the proof for himself. Faced with the challenge, Same gathered his resolve, determined to show Vlad what he was truly capable of. Yet, just as Same prepared himself, Vlad poked him on the forehead and dismissed him as petty. On the other hand, the slime urged Vlad to keep his distance. As for me, I would simply apologize to the slime for that, and only do so twice. As the slime attempted to weave another spell, Vlad gently pressed a finger against its cheek. Although the slime had carefully recited all the necessary words, not a single sound escaped, even with Vlad's interruptions. Amused by the silence, Vlad chuckled at the slime's inability to speak. The boy's laughter brought sadness to the slime, and tears welled up in its eyes. Tears welled in his eyes as he insisted he truly could do it, though Vlad argued the opposite. Certain that Sane lacked any magical ability, Vlad refused to believe him. Just then, Darl returned, and, noticing the tense scene, immediately questioned Vlad about what he was doing with her colleague. Alternatively, Vlad could have asked Darl for help. Meanwhile, the girl unleashed her magic, sending her brother flying out of the shop in a flash. On this particular day, Slime busied itself with sweeping the shop and washing the dishes, going about its cleaning tasks as usual. Observing the slime, it became clear that today it brimmed with more energy than usual. This curious change set the girl pondering what could have lifted its spirits so noticeably. A certain slime replied with excitement that today Santa would visit all the well-behaved children. Along with that, he would grant them the one thing they wished for most. It soon became clear to Darrow that the slime's cheerful mood sprang from the excitement of the approaching Christmas. Wanting to join in the spirit, she resolved to give her colleague a present and asked what he had requested from Santa this year. Slime replied that he had asked Santa for a dragon as a friend. Darrell's expression shifted to one of mild surprise upon hearing this. After some thought, she realized that Slime seemed to have a fondness for dragons. With curiosity, she asked whether the slime might want something different, perhaps a giant bar of chocolate or a sleek, stylish sword. The girl insisted that friendship was not something one could simply receive as a gift from someone else. The slime took Darl's side, and the girl felt a quiet joy, pleased that she had managed to shift his perspective. The slime declared a firm resolve to do whatever it took to become the dragon's friend. Realizing her efforts to sway the slime had failed, Darl found herself utterly at a loss about what to do next. As nightfall settled in, the girl made up her mind to craft a toy dragon for the slime, determined to finish the project while it slept peacefully. Bursting into the room, a cheerful slime announced with pride that it had finished cleaning the shop. Sitting with a toy dragon cradled in her hands, Darl looked stunned by the report and offered the slime a few words of praise for a job well done. Meanwhile, curiosity flickered in Elaine's eyes as she asked Darl if she believed Santa would pay them a visit. Turning away at that moment, she tried to shield the dragon from the slime. The girl reassured everyone that Santa adored children, making his visit all but certain. It was simply in his nature. Darl then suggested to the slime that getting some sleep would guarantee Santa's arrival. Before long, the slime and Darl were settled into bed. The slime, restless and wide awake, turned to Darl and wondered if it could befriend the dragon. In response, Darl gently explained that she already. Enthusiasm sparkled in his eyes as he bombarded Darl with question after question. Meanwhile, Darl gently but firmly insisted that Slime get some rest. As morning broke, Slime awoke with thoughts of Santa immediately filling his mind. The dragon slime had long awaited never appeared outside the window. Deep disappointment washed over Slime. Just then, a worried Darl burst into the room to announce that trouble had broken out at the shop. The girl explained how she had discovered a tiny dragon near the house. Overcome with excitement, the slime leapt out of bed without hesitation, eager to catch a glimpse of the dragon as soon as possible. Stepping out onto the balcony, Slime caught sight of a small dragon at the very center of the gathering and instantly felt drawn to it. Standing nearby, Darl suggested that Slime go over and introduce himself to the curious creature. Stepping out into the courtyard, the slime made its way forward while Shaylee greeted the dragon warmly. The dragon responded to Slime in kind. Elaine found the dragon's words utterly fascinating, unaware that it was really Darl who, with the help of magic, spoke to the slime in the dragon's name. Seyerio geoira zeusa krakui, mon peot se cyrillic letter 456, kavi veseu de era keoena. Gs peravid de Cyrillic letter 456, ve Cyrillic letter 456, in Cyrillic letter 456, snu Cyrillic letter 454. Derakea on ve Cyrillic letter 456, de peo ve Cyrillic letter 456, ve Sheotakea, ve any Cyrillic letter 454, Iryael Yeri en eme. Cyrillic letter 456, Shea obe pe Cyrillic letter 456, de te ve yer de ite itseye. De peero pe onuve avipero de yenem, oines te iruve te esve o Cyrillic letter 457, kia iriela. Upon hearing those words, the dragon soared into the sky while the slime watched in awe, captivated by the sight. The dragon felt utterly certain of his own authenticity. Touching down gracefully, he announced his intention to spend some time with Slime today, acting on Santa's request. The dragon named Darl pointed out that this was a Christmas gift for Slim in recognition of his good behavior. Delight and gratitude filled Lime as he received such a wonderful gift, prompting him to invite the dragon to become his companion. The dragon accepted, and in response, Sima wrapped his arms around his new friend, sealing their bond with a warm embrace. That same day, the slime began playing with its new friend. The boys set up an imaginative game of thief and hero. With mischief in his eyes, the dragon plotted to steal all the treasures from the shop while no one was looking. Suddenly, the brave slime leaped into action, commanding the dragon to stay right where he was. The shop's protector stepped forward once more, while Set Slime brimmed with confidence. The dragon offered only a contemptuous smile, filled with doubt that anyone could stand in his way. Slime, however, calmly countered, revealing that luck was not on the dragon's side, for a hidden ace remained up his sleeve. The image of a slime beam powerful enough to annihilate a dragon flashed vividly. Yet, in reality, it existed only within the slime's imagination. Once the game ended, Slime turned to his companion and asked what their next move would be. However, Darl the dragon suggested they take a break since the girl had grown tired from playing. The slime began to eat, while the dragon settled down nearby, quietly watching its companion. The slime took up painting as the dragon settled comfortably nearby. With a swift gesture, the slime that Darrow had moved from the road unleashed its magic upon the dragon. Veoni pe Cyrillic letter 456, denya lesya te akeve yesokea o. Shea che Cyrillic letter 456, SLA krakui, emazea be eli shea eli. Settling on the edge of the cliff atop the hill, the boys gazed into the distance. Quite suddenly, Slime turned to the dragon and asked if hard work might one day grant him the power to become a mighty dragon too. The dragon's reply came without hesitation. Slime could never transform into a dragon. The weight of those words sent a chill deep through Slime's heart. The dragon realized a path had opened before him, offering the chance to become a being of immense power. Eager anticipation filled him at the thought of witnessing the moment when Slime would reach extraordinary power. In return, Slime made a sincere promise to the dragon to give everything he had. The powerful Slime diligently resumed its duties in Darl's shop after Christmas, carrying on with its work as before. Curious eyes lingered on the calm expression of the slime, her surprise growing as she noticed its composure. Although she had expected it to be troubled after the dragon's departure, perhaps she was not alone in thinking this way. With these doubts lingering, Darl chose to voice her concern directly. She gently inquired whether the slime felt lonely now that its friend had gone. Slime explained that a promise had been made to the dragon to become a powerful slime. At that instant, realization dawned on the girl, and she finally understood the situation. As night settled in, the boys quietly went about their evening routine, preparing themselves for sleep as they always did. Suddenly, Darl noticed Slim holding his box and questioned him about it. Calmly, Slim explained that he no longer intended to use his own. Elaine declared he had grown stronger. Upon hearing this, Darl felt an overwhelming surge of happiness. The girl struggled to contain her delight, hardly able to keep herself from letting out a joyful cry. Realization washed over him as he understood that, with his box now gone, she could finally sleep beside him like a beloved Dakimakura. Earlier, the girl had embraced the idea, spreading her arms wide and inviting him to lie down beside her. Instead, Slime announced a new decision. From now on, he would sleep under the bed. Darl couldn't grasp his reasoning. she tried to change his mind, warning him that a ghost might be lurking down there. But Slime replied with confidence, declaring he would defeat any ghost that appeared. After peering beneath the bed, Slime found not a single trace of a ghost and concluded with confidence that he had conquered his fears. From beneath the bed, Slime peeked out and assured Darl that the ghost had fled. Now, hidden under the bed, they could find safety. Overcome with dismay and disappointment, Darl turned away from the slime and walked toward the bed. The slime tried to call him back, but the girl responded only with a scornful snort. A year had passed in the world of slime. The following day, Pakona paid another visit to the shop, bringing warm New Year's greetings to the boys. Slime welcomed her kindly, and she returned his greeting with a gentle smile. Following this, the girl suggested a game of badminton and invited Slice to join. Pakona pointed out that playing badminton is a mandatory tradition during New Year celebrations. The girl began explaining the rules, which turned out to be quite simple. Each player had to hit the shuttlecock with their racket, and the first person to miss would lose the game. The boys wasted no time and dove straight into a game right there in the store. Pakona explained the rules, pointing out that if the shuttlecock landed on this side, Slime would score a point. Fully understanding the instructions, Slime readied himself while the girl set the game in motion. With a powerful swing, Kona sent the shuttlecock soaring into the sky. It rose so high and traveled so far that the slime could only tilt its head back and follow its path with wide-eyed wonder. Na yasha tesuriliclata 456, vol imperize mliv esya pose de uspen eslema. At that moment, Jonah happily announced her very first point of the year. Noticing the dissatisfied look on the slime's face, the girl wondered aloud why it appeared so expressive. She insisted that she had simply followed the rules. In response, Pakona declared with determination that, from now on, she would no longer hold back and everything would get serious. With those words, the girl sent another shuttlecock soaring through the air and asked Simon if he had the strength left to return the shot. Simon instantly realized the shuttlecock would soar over his head once again, so he decided to increase its size. The sight left Pakona utterly stunned. At that very moment, Slane returned the shuttlecock with a decisive strike from his forehead. The shuttlecock soared toward Pakona, arching high above her reach. Realizing its height, the girl knew it was impossible to catch. At that very moment, Darl suddenly materialized behind Pakona. With a curious glint in his eye, he asked the boys if they were ready for the zone. Pakona glanced over her shoulder at Darl, and the shuttlecock slipped from her grasp, landing softly beside her. Meanwhile, Kona declared the match a draw, much to the slime's disappointment. Kona announced the end of their battle with the slime and declared it time to rest. Darl turned to the others and asked if they wanted to try Modi. The slime eagerly expressed a desire to do so, and Pakona admitted she was also interested. Yet, even with this decision, their bickering continued. The following day, Shiraru paid a visit to the shop, presenting the boys with a magical orb said to reveal glimpses of the future. It turned out that Slime and Shiroro shared a truly close friendship, a fact that filled Slime with genuine happiness. On the other hand, some found it suspicious that the fortune-telling came from a white mage. Yet Shiroro insisted that Darl was mistaken, maintaining that her predictions were exceptionally accurate. Darl also observed that her teamwork with Shiroro was flawless. Still, she felt uneasy about how Shiroro began her fortune-telling without first seeking her permission. At that moment, the slime suggested that Kairoro test his compatibility with Darl. Though uncertainty lingered in her eyes, Darl reluctantly agreed to follow the slime's idea. Deeply curious about the outcome, she watched intently while Shiroro turned his attention to the art of fortune-telling. The girl observed that the connection between the slime and the Darrow appeared to be moderate. Unimpressed, she turned away and remarked that fortune-telling was nothing more than a joke, which explained why dark mages never took it seriously. Genuine disappointment weighed heavy on her heart as she grappled with her lack of compatibility with the slime. Perched on the edge of a rocky cliff, she sat lost in anxious thought. The depth of her sorrow dulled her senses, leaving her oblivious to Shiraro darting out of the shop and calling for Darl. Darl offered an apology to Shirara, admitting she had not told the truth. Shirara acknowledged this by saying that the understanding between Darl and Slime surpassed anything she herself could claim. The girl confessed that jealousy toward Darl had driven her to lie. This year, Oro quietly admitted how deeply sorry she felt for her actions. Darl, completely at ease, stood up and assured everyone with a warm smile that she took no offense. After all, it had only been a harmless fortune-telling. The girl returned to the shop, and once she was certain Shiraro couldn't see her, she leaped for joy. Binge and the slime shared a playful moment. One day, the slime drew a picture of itself with Vlad, turning their daily life into an amusing game. In this make-believe scene, Vlad tried to steal something, but the mischievous slime repeatedly got in his way, thwarting every attempt. Undeterred by any obstacles, his determination to steal anything within reach remained unshaken. However, the slime responded to the thief's ambition by unleashing a unique power known as Little Fire. As flames devoured the villain, agonized screams echoed as his resistance faltered. At that critical moment, Vlad stepped forward and implored him to stop, urging the slime to cease its ruthless strategy. Elaine lifted her gaze, recognition flickering in her eyes as she saw the villain. With a familiar ease, he greeted her, saying hello. Guy explained that he had something to deliver to Darl and asked if she was upstairs. Without hesitation, Slime objected and insisted that he would never have done such a thing. Vlad tried to clarify that it was Darl herself who had requested this favor, but Slime refused to listen. With a raised voice, he ordered Vlad to leave at once. Slime declared his intention to attack Vlad if he refused to leave. Doubt filled Vlad as he listened to the slime's claims. The last attempt at magic had been a complete failure, and past experience made Vlad wary. Never in his life had he encountered a slime who could weave spells. Even so, the slime remained adamant, insisting that this time it would succeed. Vlad requested that the slime display its magic, warning that if it refused, he would have no choice but to summon Darl. At that moment, the slime recalled Darl's words as she handed him the bench. Those words filled him with determination to keep fighting. Uncertain about the words tiny flame, the slime aimed its staff at Vlad. The attack came swiftly, and Vlad barely managed to dodge the strike in time. Astonishment swept over the young man as he realized that the slime truly possessed the ability to attack. At that moment, Slime declared with unwavering resolve that he would protect the shop. At that moment, Vlad realized the gravity of the situation. He explained that while the slime's attacks appeared impressive, even a small mistake with fire could lead to disaster. When they looked over, both saw flames rapidly engulfing the stall. Most of them had no choice but to save themselves on their own. By evening, the fire in the store was finally extinguished. Darl stood with a scowl, holding the slimy creature in her hands, and looked down at Vlad, who knelt before her. She asked what they were supposed to do about the ruined merchandise. Vlad mumbled an incoherent response, barely managing to form words. Darl replied sharply that her brother would now have to buy every last item that had burned. An unexpected chill crept into the air, and Darl couldn't help but notice how the days seemed colder lately. The gradual drop in temperature stirred a quiet concern within her about her own well-being. So she decided to ask the slime if everything was all right. The creature reassured her, saying that it felt perfectly fine. Lost in thought, she wondered whether slugs were even capable of falling ill. The slug paused before admitting with honesty that it had absolutely no idea. Darl suggested giving everything a thorough winter inspection, just in case. Grasping the slug by its cheeks, he resumed testing its elasticity, gently stretching and pressing to observe its springy texture. Before long, Darl stopped poking at the slime, realizing her actions might raise suspicion. The slime, noticing the change, asked if everything was all right. Darl understood that if she replied now, the inspection would have to end, but she had no intention of letting it finish just yet. The group realized that repeating the same test would surely arouse suspicion. Still, Darl showed no intention of stopping his exploration of the slime's strange surface. Nearby, the girl pondered aloud, speculating on the reason behind the slime's remarkable softness. Pretending that the slime had revealed something truly significant, she managed to startle him. With urgency in his voice, he asked her to examine him once more. With delight shining in his eyes, Darl eagerly rushed forward to embrace the slime once more. Eventually, the slime turned to Darl and inquired about what had happened. After taking a moment to reflect, Darl cheerfully announced that the slime was in excellent condition. Hearing this brought a quiet delight to the slime, even though the girl had already examined it 100 times without finding a single issue. The days gradually grew colder. The temperature outside dropped sharply, and a chill seeped into the shop as well. To keep warm, Darl wrapped himself tightly in a blanket. Just then, a slug slipped into the room and offered the girl a cheerful good morning. Darl, however, could hardly agree with such a greeting, as her own morning had turned out to be anything but good. She found herself puzzled by how completely unfazed the slug seemed by the cold. At that moment, the slime announced plans to make a morning sweep to tidy up. Darl, however, held it back. Curiosity sparkled in his eyes as he wondered if the slime really intended to step outside like that. The girl pointed out that such attire might be fine indoors, but beyond these walls, the biting cold prevailed, and winter clothes would serve the slime far better. The slime's face reflected clear surprise at these words, making it obvious that he owned nothing that could pass for winter clothing. Realizing this, the girl decided to see if she had anything suitable for dealing with the slime. As she rummaged through her belongings, inspiration struck. Her Christmas stocking might just do the trick. Sliding the stocking over his head, Sliz immediately felt a comforting warmth envelop him. At that moment, the young woman turned her gaze toward the gentle slime, confusion flickering across her face. The slime, unable to grasp the reason behind her look, simply waited in silence. As the slime prepared to head out for work, Darl gently delayed his departure. She pointed out with concern that his neck might get cold and asked him to wait a moment. Within a few minutes, watching the slime only left Darl more bewildered. The creature appeared astonishingly adorable, already snuggled up in a warm, cozy outfit. Once more he attempted to head off to work, yet Darl called out and asked the slime to pause. Carol realized she needed to find out how warm the slime was, so she wrapped her arms around it in a firm embrace. Their embrace lasted for quite a while, though the slime remained less than thrilled about the situation. A sandwich and slime. On an ordinary day, Darl found herself seated once more at her cluttered work desk. Sliz approached her and the girl apologized, explaining that she would soon finish her work and prepare something afterward. Sliz agreed to wait for a while and settled in to watch as Darl continued working. Suddenly, a brilliant idea sparked in his mind. The girl pointed out that this truly posed a problem, since the neighborhood would grow noisy at night because of zombies and other similar creatures. The slime felt frightened by these words. Downstairs, preparations quietly took place in a room on the first floor. Lime recalled the moment when Darl expressed her gratitude for the meal he had prepared. Lime recalled Shuru's comment about how making sandwiches was simple. Embracing this idea, Lime set out to prepare sandwiches for both himself and Darl. Kororo patiently explained to the slime that making a sandwich was as simple as placing some food between two slices of bread. Inspired by this straightforward method, the slime set out to craft a sandwich filled with jam. Sadly, the last of the Marmalade disappeared, leaving the slime deeply disappointed. Gazing at the scattered pieces of bread, the slime found itself at a loss, uncertain how to proceed. Then, quite unexpectedly, a brilliant idea illuminated its mind. After a while, he approached Darl once more, a plate held carefully in his hands. Mentioned that he had prepared sandwiches for her, noticing how busy she was. The sight of the sandwich brought a pleasant surprise to Darl. At that moment, he proudly announced his latest creation, a magnificent sandwich. He had cleverly placed a piece of bread between two slices of bread. Darl froze in astonishment, completely at a loss for how to respond. We expressed our gratitude to the snail and decided to try its sandwich. The girl took a bite of the sandwich with the snail inside. Instantly, the snail inquired whether she enjoyed it. She replied that the bread carried a pleasant, night-like flavor, though she still missed having a glass of milk. The day finally arrived when Darl decided it was time to pay Sliz his long-awaited salary. Pure joy lit up Lime's face as Darl handed him the pouch, and he thanked the girl warmly for her kindness. Lime untied the pouch, fully expecting to find chewy jelly candies inside, not a handful of coins. The slime had hoped to discover Marmalade, but instead found only coins, leaving him disappointed. Noticing the change, she inquired about the sudden shift in his expression. The girl expected the slime to be happier, considering it was his first paycheck, yet it seemed the slime had no idea what a paycheck even was. Darl explained that the slime had worked hard, sweeping the floor, arranging the merchandise, and keeping an eye on the shop. For these efforts, it truly deserved to be paid. Darl notes that money carries a special weight when earned through hard work. That is why he asks the slime to spend these coins with care. The girl mentioned that she would continue caring for the slime, appreciating how well it carried out its tasks. With cheerful determination, the slime promised to keep giving its best effort. In that moment, Darrow wondered how Slime planned to spend his very first paycheck. When asked, Slime announced he would use the entire sum to buy colorful candies. This made the girl realize Slime hadn't paid any attention to what she'd been saying. At that moment, the slime declared its intent to purchase the legendary sword with that salary. Diriala stepped in to temper its enthusiasm, realizing that it had no understanding of money, especially since the sword in question was astonishingly expensive. With this in mind, the young woman suggested an outing to the city for a shopping trip with the slime. Upon hearing about the city, the slime froze midair. It turned out that it had never had the chance to visit before. Relay shared stories with the slime about countless wonders hidden within the city, describing sprawling markets, roaring forges, and shops bursting with curiosities. In response, the slime confessed a single wish: to visit the candy shop overflowing with jelly treats. Watching this exchange, Dariella suddenly realized that all the slime cared about was tasting those delicious morsels. Only after Dariella promised to take the slime to the city did she begin to consider the possible consequences. An unexpected realization struck the girl. Other mages might spot her with the slime. Meanwhile, the cheerful slime pressed onward toward the city, humming a tune as it moved with unwavering determination. Meanwhile, uncertainty clouded her thoughts. Someone still lingered somewhere in the city, not far from where she stood. Suddenly, realization dawned. An escape route truly did exist. The girl approached the slime and gently asked if it was all right. The young woman suggested that the slime dress fashionably, pointing out that visits to the city did not happen often for him. The slime found the idea quite appealing. A desire to look stylish had taken hold of him, yet a challenge remained, as he was still a slime and would need a suit. Darl asked him to wait for a moment while she went upstairs. The girl decided to wear the costume she had sewn herself, slipping into the outfit with a sense of anticipation. In an instant, the slime became the terror of the entire forest. In the end, as Darrow gazed at the still adorable slug, the truth became clear. Every effort to disguise its true nature had failed, and hiding who it was would never succeed. Accepting this, she decided it was wiser to let others see it in the form of this artificially crafted monstrosity. Meanwhile, Olive turned to Darl and asked if he thought she looked cool. Darl replied that the slime did seem powerful with those claws. Realizing the situation, the girl decided it was time to find herself a change of clothes as well. After a while, she returned to the patiently waiting slime, offering a sincere apology for keeping it waiting. The slime stood frozen in astonishment upon witnessing the remarkable transformation of Darl. Rising to her new role as a tamer of monsters, she caught the attention of the slime, who curiously asked why she had chosen to change her outfit. Darl explained that this particular style was currently all the rage. Turning the conversation, the girl wondered aloud if she looked good, only for the slime to awkwardly admit that he wasn't sure how to answer. A walk through the slime. Once everything was ready for departure, Darl informed the slime creature that it could soon make its way to the city along the main road. For now, however, the moment to leave had yet to arrive. Darl announced that their next means of travel would be by broomstick. Slime, brimming with curiosity, wondered aloud if the broom could truly take flight. With a confident nod, Darl assured him it certainly could, reminding him that magic was on her side. At that moment, the girl requested that Slane remove certain items from his backpack to prevent them from falling out and breaking. The mere suggestion unsettled Slane, as the backpack strapped to his back was twice his own size. Preparation complete, the boys stood ready for takeoff. At last, they soared up into the sky. A blob of slime settled comfortably inside a white bucket fastened to the broom, while the protagonist perched up on the broom itself. In an instant, they soared far above the clouds. Delight filled Sliz as breathtaking landscapes unfolded beneath the dragon's soaring wings, capturing his keen admiration with every sweeping view. At the same time, she simply asked Sign to hold on tight, as she intended to pick up speed. "Sorry, but I only provide texts in Ukrainian. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Soaring through the sky, the flight carried him high above the clouds, sometimes even beyond them. The entire journey thrilled the slime to its core. Eventually, the mountains appeared on the horizon, standing as silent sentinels before the city sprawled beyond them. Unexpectedly, Darl announced that her magic reserves had run dry. That revelation left the slime frozen in surprise. In the same instant, the boys began to plummet downward. Without warning, Darl darted forward once more, casually remarking that it had all been a joke. Yet before the slime could savor any relief, another obstacle appeared in its path. The mountain loomed dangerously close to the boys. Panic took hold of Sina, and she urged Darl to climb higher with the plane. Racing toward the mountain, Slim became certain that a collision could no longer be avoided. Without warning, Darl veered sharply and soared upward. Within moments, the boys flickered among the clouds above the city. Aelin gazed in awe at the magnificent buildings, marveling at the intricate beauty of their architecture. On the eve of Halloween, Pakona strolled into the shop wearing a witch's hat and asked if the treat was sweet or spooky. The girl feigned courage, yet a genuine fear gripped her and prompted her to hide behind her broom. A heartbeat later, as her fear melted away, she stepped forward and reached out to tug at his cheeks. Pakona announced her intention to tease the slime and promised to come back if she didn't receive any candy. The slime had absolutely no idea what Pakona wanted from him. Noticing his confusion, she asked what was wrong with his face. The girl then explained that today was Halloween, and when someone says trick or treat, you're supposed to choose between a joke or a piece of candy. Darl claimed that her spell had already earned her a remarkable stash of candy. At last, the little sprite turned to Pekin and asked directly, was it sweet or was it unpleasant? Kona chuckled, noting that in an outfit like the one slime wore now, it hardly counted at all. Darl insisted that the spell would have no effect unless the slime was dressed in a costume. To everyone's surprise, the slime suddenly started to slip away. Meanwhile, Pakona believed she had already overcome this foe. Convinced she had showcased the might of the fairies and handed the slime a decisive defeat, the girl prepared to head home for a treat of candies. Just then, the slime called out and commanded her to halt. Spinning around, the fairy found it hard to believe what her eyes were witnessing. Dressed in a whimsical hat and holding a staff, the slug once again posed the question to Pakona, sweet or spicy. Pakona lingered in bewilderment, unable to fathom how the slug had acquired such an intriguing masquerade outfit. Startled, Tony dropped her bag of candies, which tumbled from her hands onto the ground. Embarrassment washed over her as the slime claimed victory, yet surrendering her beloved candies was out of the question. Driven by despair, the girl broke down in tears. At last, she made up her mind to offer the slime a candy. The slime accepted the brightly wrapped treat and thanked her with simple gratitude. Quietly, the girl promised herself she would never forget this moment. Once Pakonas had left the shop, the slime approached Darl. Without hesitation, Darl asked why the slime had chosen such an outfit. Though the girl remained silent, a thought crossed her mind. She found the slime quite adorable in those clothes. Meanwhile, Alvar explained that today people hand out sweets to anyone dressed as a wizard. At that moment, understanding dawned on Darl. She realized this must be the holiday called Halloween, known in the north, and asked the slime if he was aware of it. The slime simply replied that he had just received some candy. A brief moment of reflection brought back the memory that her mother was supposed to be running late. He pulled out a candy and paused, debating whether to indulge right away. In that instant, the slug's eyes began to glow with anticipation. Clearly, Darrow wasn't the only one tempted by this sweet treat. The girl turned to him and asked if he knew any magical spells for Halloween. For a moment, the slime hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his features. Suddenly remembering, he called out a set of magic words, their sound a blend of sweetness and playful mischief. On that note, Darrell handed the slime a necklace crafted by his mother. The slime accepted the gift with delight and offered heartfelt thanks to the girl. Meanwhile, the girl offered the slime a snack, and it eagerly accepted her invitation. The slime eagerly savored the treats, while Darrell simply watched in silence. After Slime devoured the eighth dessert, Darrell wondered if he enjoyed it. Slime nodded, confirming his satisfaction. The girl then asked if Slime had any candy with him. Slime replied that he didn't have any. Upon hearing this, Darrell turned to Slime and asked whether he was sweet or sly, then cheekily requested some candy. Frustration flared in Slime, who didn't have even a single piece of candy to offer. This was exactly what Darrell had longed for. The slime performed a playful gesture, prompting Darrell to rush over and embrace it. Only after some time did the slime realize why Darrell couldn't ask for kindness or a friendly gesture. Without her costume, the spell wouldn't have taken effect. Still, the girl gently reminded the slime that she was a mage. Later, the slime made its way to the school where Darl taught, and Vlad happened to be Darl's classmate. During a lesson, Darl asked the students if anyone wished to solve a problem. Eager to put himself to the test, the slime immediately stepped forward, ready to tackle the challenge. Fingertips barely brushing the book's pages, he cheerfully admitted his ignorance of the answer. This prompted Dara to wonder why the slime had raised its hand in the first place. The heroine decided to offer the slime a small hint, revealing that the task came from yesterday's homework. The slime, however, cheerfully admitted that it hadn't done the assignment. Darrell turned his attention to the slime, asking why the homework hadn't been completed. With a cheerful grin, the slime admitted once more that recognizing letters was not among its skills. Darrell's jaw dropped at the confession, but in the end, she commended the slime for speaking so honestly. The girl turned to Vlad and asked if he could solve the problem. Vlad replied with confidence, certain that it was within his abilities. Rising from the chair, he glanced over at the textbook. Afterward, the young man scratched his head, admitting he couldn't make sense of the symbols before him. Darrow found those words deeply irritating. The girl inquired whether Vlad had remembered yesterday's homework. With a hint of fear, Vlad admitted that he hadn't done it. This confession only fueled Darrow's anger even more. In the end, Vlad found himself standing outside the door, the result of forgetting to complete his homework. Now, let's return to the moment when Darrell and Slime set out together for the city for the very first time. As they made their way to the bustling marketplace, Slime found himself marveling at the sheer number of people gathered there. Darting from one passerby to the next, he greeted everyone along the way. Suddenly, the slime bumped into a charming girl with adorable ears. Intrigued by the girl's claws, Slime offered her a sincere compliment. She graciously thanked him, returning the gesture by praising his own remarkable claws. Just then, Darrell, who had been hurrying after him, finally caught up. She pointed out that his outbursts were disturbing the others and suggested he leave the conversation in the capable hands of the girl. Slime simply apologized to her in response. An enticing aroma drifted through the air, catching his attention. Glancing around, Slime spotted a market stall as the source of the delicious scent. Without hesitation, the slime slid up to the counter and addressed the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper greeted him warmly and asked how he could be of assistance. The vendor then inquired whether the slime intended to eat on the spot or take the food to go. This unexpected question left the slime momentarily stunned. Without responding to the question, the slime simply placed an order for 10 skewers. At that moment, Darl walked up to the stall and addressed him, asking whether he truly didn't understand the concept of takeout. Darl explained that it would be unwise to buy all 10 at once, since there was a chance the skewers might not be to his taste. The slime recognized the logic in Darl's words. Then Darl asked the vendor to prepare 2 skewers for takeaway. The vendor handed the boys their skewers, and together they continued wandering through the city streets. Darl took the opportunity to explain to the slime that if he kept spending money at this pace, he might someday find himself without enough for something truly important. The slime listened carefully and promised to be more cautious with his spending from now on. As the skewers sizzled over the flames, uncertainty flickered in Slizniak's mind. Puzzled, Slug turned to Darl to ask whether it was okay to eat shashlik. Darl, however, mentioned that it would worry him if they ate while walking, so the girl suggested they find a bench and settle in comfortably for their meal. They did just that. Darl ate at a leisurely pace, savoring each bite, stretching out the pleasure. Meanwhile, the slime devoured all the meat in an instant, clearly delighted by this type of meal. Realizing that the meat was all gone brought a hint of disappointment to his face. Darl took notice and offered her own skewer to the slug. Hesitation flickered in the slug's eyes as he asked what she would eat instead. With a small shrug, the girl replied that she wasn't really hungry after all. In that moment, the cheerful slime visor snatched the meat skewer from the girl's hands and began to feast on it. Relishing every bite of the meat, the slime paused as Darl inquired about their next destination. Without hesitation, the slime declared their plan to head straight for the store meant for proper age groups. Darl blinked in surprise, noticing that despite devouring 2 skewers of meat, the slime remained eager to visit the jelly shop. The candy store stood beside a shop filled with souvenirs. After some time, the boys finally arrived at a place brimming with all kinds of jelly sweets. Spotting the colorful treats, the slime overflowed with joy. Staring at the candies, disbelief washed over him, struggling to accept that all of this was truly happening to him. With that, he picked up the basket of candies and declared solemnly that this was his final decision. At that moment, the heroine approached the slime and asked what he had decided. A suspicion was already forming in her mind that the slime might be planning to spend all their money again. In contrast, Alive saw nothing wrong with it. To him, the sweets hardly seemed in danger of vanishing from the shelves. Darl, however, felt differently and asked Simon to check his wallet. Following Daryl's advice, Lime searched his wallet and discovered a single coin. Darl then clarified that Lime was only allowed to spend that money in this place. Shock washed over Lime, realizing that a single coin would only buy 1 large lollipop. Yet Darl suggested another option, offering 3 smaller lollipops for the same price. Carol urged Slane to pause and reflect before making the purchase, reminding him that he had earned this money through hard work. A sense of being deceived settled over Slime as he drifted into contemplation, questioning the decisions he had made. While surveying the assortment of candies, the melancholy little slime hesitated, unable to choose between a large lollipop and a smaller one. Quite some time had passed, yet the little slime remained deep in thought, clutching its head as if struggling beneath the weight of concentration. Suddenly, smoke began to rise around his head. Darl noticed the strange sight and turned to the slug creature for an explanation, but the being stood silent and mesmerized, offering no response. Drawing closer to the slug, a gentle touch of her finger set things in motion. Instantly, the creature seemed to reboot, rousing from its dormant state. After stopping by the candy shop, the boys decided to wander through the city a bit longer. While Darl found herself completely absorbed by a toy store window that had captured her curiosity, the slime's gaze drifted to a nearby weapons shop. Without a moment's hesitation, the cheerful little slime zipped into the weapons shop and began to carefully examine everything in sight. Slime gazed in wonder at the dazzling array of goods surrounding him. Suddenly, the shopkeeper addressed him, politely asking if he could slow down a bit. Rather than addressing the slime directly, the shopkeeper dismissed him as a fake bear and suggested he should just go home if he was only there out of curiosity. Realizing what the shopkeeper meant, Elaine reached into his pocket and revealed his wallet. At once, the shopkeeper understood his earlier mistake and offered an apology to the slime for his rude behavior. The slime wondered aloud if the shopkeeper could assist with anything as a customer. Drifting over, the slime inquired about the availability of legendary weapons. Luck seemed to be on the slime's side, for the shopkeeper revealed that they did indeed have several legendary specimens in stock. This revelation filled the slime with anticipation. The vendor swiftly drew a short saber and boldly proclaimed it to be the legendary Starblade. He insisted that this weapon broke only after splitting a star in two. Such a declaration left the curious slime utterly fascinated. With the sword now in hand, he examined it with bright-eyed fascination. Meanwhile, the vendor spotted an opportunity and offered the slime another shimmering accessory. An extraordinary, legendary shield emerged before him, a relic once responsible for saving the entire city from a falling meteorite. The sight of this shield left the slime deeply astonished. A spark lit up his eyes as the realization dawned. He yearned deeply to claim the legendary sword and the unparalleled shield. The merchant showcased his acting talents as the slime lifted the shield for a closer look. With a convincing display of astonishment, the merchant pretended it was beyond belief that a slime could wield both a legendary sword and a shield at the same time. The merchant inquired whether the slug might, by any chance, be the legendary Star Warrior. Upon hearing this, the slug straightened up with a newfound sense of pride. The merchant insisted with confidence that his eyes had not deceived him. These items truly held great value, and he was prepared to part with them for the slime at a generous discount. The slug thanked the merchant and declared his intention to buy everything. Darl, overhearing this bold statement, hurried to the weapon shop. She rushed to intercept the slug, determined to remind him not to make any purchases without her supervision, but he was already poised to complete the transaction. Clad in shabby, worn-out gear, each of them boasted with unwavering confidence that they possessed legendary equipment. Inside the shop, Slime insisted that the object in Darl's hands was a legendary star blade, powerful enough to slice through celestial bodies themselves. Darl, however, remained unconvinced and saw the purchase as nothing but a waste of money. Unwilling to indulge this fantasy, the girl asked Slime to return the useless item. In this way, Darl returned the slime's equipment. She suggested that next time he should visit other shops and compare their goods. The group took her advice to heart. As they strolled down the street, Darl kept an eye out for anything that might prove useful. Suddenly, the girl's gaze drifted back to the shelf lined with toys. Noticing how charming the store looked, she suggested that everyone step inside. Stepping inside, Darl couldn't contain his delight. The toy shop filled a gap she hadn't realized existed. Her eyes drifted across the shelves until they landed on a particular toy, holding her attention. To Darl, it was just an ordinary teddy bear as he studied it closely. The toy seemed to silently plead with the girl, urging her to take it home. Realization dawned on the girl. She truly wanted that toy. Yet with the slime lingering nearby, buying it would ruin her image as a dark mage. A sudden realization struck Darl. If someone else bought that toy, disappointment would fill her heart. Considering this, she started planning her next move. Striding over to the toy with purpose, she seized it and set her mind on outsmarting the slime, all in hopes of securing the coveted item later. At that moment, the slime hovered nearby, its gaze fixed intently on the toy that held Darl Cuddle inside. Noticing the scrutiny, Darl addressed the slime, curious about the change in its appearance. The girl calmly replied, explaining that the toy was needed for an upcoming ritual. Sliz, on the other hand, viewed it as a pointless waste of money, while his sword Darl considered the whole thing utterly unnecessary. Watching Sliz unravel her plan with such speed left Darl genuinely impressed. Faced with this, she decided to try a different approach. With a calm confidence, she explained that this toy was essential for her magical research, then invited the slime to choose a toy instead of the sword. Realization dawned on the girl that this plan was a success, as it meant she would be left with not just one, but two intact toys. Alive stood his ground with unwavering determination, insisting that the Star Sword was a true legend, irreplaceable by anything else. At that moment, Darl's patience finally snapped, driving him back to the armory to retrieve the slippery Star Sword. Lunch in the city. By the time Darl and the slime wandered through the bustling streets, midday had already arrived. The girl paused to recall their only meals so far, just some skewered meat and the lollipop the slime now clutched in its jelly-like grasp. Despite everything, Darrow felt no hunger. At that very moment, the slime's stomach rumbled loudly. Sliz confessed his hunger had reached its limit. With no other choice, Darrow agreed to feed him. Together, the boys set off for the Wanderer's Mandrake Cafe. Once they settled at the table, the group began browsing through the menu. Darl turned to the slug and asked if he had made up his mind. With a cheerful nod, the slug confirmed his choice. Taking this as his cue, Darl decided to order and signaled for the waiter. Approaching the table, the young woman took note as Darl requested the set meal, which included the dish of the day and a bowl of soup. During this exchange, the little slime inquired about the meaning of a set meal. Darl explained that it referred to a special combination offered by the restaurant. With that decided, the slime placed an order for a full combo set: hamburgers, crispy fried shrimp, a fluffy omelet, steamed rice, a juicy steak, and a serving of ice cream for dessert. Recognizing that too many options might overwhelm the slime and cause it to spoil, I suggested it pick just one dish, knowing it was unlikely to eat more. My advice only seemed to irritate the slime, who clearly longed to sample more flavors. Without objecting to Darl, his gaze drifted back to the menu as he fell into thought. Suddenly, a neighboring table caught his attention. At a nearby table, an old gentleman sat enjoying his meal. Slime suddenly pointed towards him, drawing attention to the mouth-watering dish before him. Darl stole a quick glance at the neighboring table and caught sight of a lavishly prepared plate. Instantly, the girl began to wonder what it could be. In this situation, Darl decided it would be wise to advise the slime to make a choice and avoid overpaying. With a careful scan of the menu, the slime settled on a particular dish. The girl clarified that this meal included a hamburger, crispy fried shrimp, and a fluffy omelet. This combination clearly sparked the slime's interest. After a moment of hesitation, he finally chose the dish that Darl had recommended. The waiter noted their order and made his way back to the kitchen. Before long, she returned carrying the order. A children's meal of eggs, shrimp, and a hamburger was served to Slym. Alan took a moment to admire his meal, feeling a surge of happiness he wanted to share with Darl. He pointed out the hamburger and fried shrimp arranged neatly on his plate, drawing her attention to the small flag perched between them. Without wasting a moment, the slime dove right into its meal and began to eat. Loud slurping sounds filled the air as the slime savored its food, while Darry quietly reminded it to be careful and not choke. Mage, while the boys were still lingering in town, Darl suddenly remembered she needed mandrake seeds. A troubling incident seemed to have occurred at their shop, sending a chill of fear through him. Darl, noticing his alarm, quickly stepped in with calm reassurance, gently explaining that everything was actually fine. Lost in thought for a moment, Darl remembered that seeds were sold exclusively at the magic shop, which meant the chances of running into a sorcerer were high. Although she realized she was working herself up, she couldn't calm her racing thoughts. Before long, the slime and Darola arrive at a bustling department store. At that moment, a young woman stood at the counter, placing her order. She requested 4 books on magic, a stone golem, and 1 spider turtle. The man behind the counter explained that a mistake with the order had left them with an abundance of keychains. With a friendly smile, he offered the girl one if she happened to like any of them. She, however, asked him to stop making jokes. The man insisted that she was a dark sorceress, unworthy of desiring such adornments. In truth, a demon of shadowy magic named Ural stood before him. Cheryl remarked that dark mages have a particular fondness for skulls, mummies, and other eerie artifacts, and anyone employed at a magic shop ought to be aware of this by now. Ural inquired about the specific curiosity concerning skulls, prompting the man in front of them to clarify that their shop did not carry any skulls at all. At that moment, a joyful and excitable slime girl burst into the shop, instantly drawing every eye. Amazement filled her as she took in the sheer size of the store, which dwarfed Daryl's modest shop back home. Right behind her, Darl hurried in and called out, urging her to calm down and keep her voice down. Cheryl attempted to explain to the slime that she would just buy the seeds, they would move on afterward, and he would have to wait quietly to the side for a little while. At that very moment, standing near the register, Cheryl thought she heard Darl's familiar voice drifting from somewhere nearby. Darl hurried to the counter and asked the vendor to hand her mandrake seeds as quickly as possible. The vendor passed the seeds to the girl and included a keychain as a gift. The keychain charmed the girl at first sight, capturing her heart instantly. At first, disbelief lingered. Could something so delightful really be free? Yet the shopkeeper reassured her with a smile, explaining that Darl was welcome to take it since an unexpected surplus had arrived by mistake. At that moment, Ural, who had at first tried to hide beneath the wide brim of her hat as Darl drew closer, finally spoke up. She mentioned that she recognized someone's voice. Hearing this, Darl turned and appeared to recognize Ural as well. Resting her cheek on her hand, Darl inquired about her unusual attire. It was clear from their interaction that the 2 dark mages were already acquainted. Sorceress Ural watched Darl intently, struggling to comprehend how someone could transform so completely. Curiosity compelled her to ask how Darl was doing now and whether her fear of insects still lingered. In that instant, Darl realized she had encountered someone with whom connecting felt nearly impossible. Deciding without hesitation, she turned to leave the shop. Just then, a slime gently approached her, curious about the person its master had just been speaking to. Darl replied that she had never met Yarrow before. The girl had simply started a conversation with her out of the blue. Yarrow found this answer unsatisfactory. She introduced herself by boldly claiming that she and Darl were childhood friends. This surprised Yarrow, stirring her curiosity about why the slime referred to Darl as its master and where it had come to know her. The slime explained that it worked at Darilla's shop, and at that moment Darilla herself tried to stop the slime, but a sudden silence filled the air. As the slime reached Darl, a sense of wonder lit up her face, and she exclaimed with delight how incredible it was. The notion of dark mages hiring slimes had never once reached his ears. Amusement flickered in Yarrow's eyes as he teased Darl for sneaking a slime into the city under the guise of secrecy. Crimson crept up Daryl's cheeks while she trembled with embarrassment. Yarrow attempted to smooth things over by claiming she had simply hired the slime to help keep the shop cool. The explanation, however, did not sit well with her. Shifting the topic, Darl turned to her acquaintance and asked if she had managed to improve her magical abilities. A brief hesitation flickered across Darl's face after the question. She admitted to mastering most of the spells, though the results still left much to be desired. Reaching for the spellbook Yarl had purchased, Darl decided to take a closer look. Across from her, Errol blinked rapidly, silently willing her to stop, but by then it was already too late. Glancing at the cover of the book, Dart quickly realized it was an edition for beginners, designed specifically for children. With a mysterious flourish, Dart returned the book to its shelf, then turned to Yarrow and exclaimed with delight that it was truly incredible. Darl inquired if Errol still needed the beginner's book. Errol, uninterested in discussing the matter, simply told Darl to be quiet. Darl mentioned that she was furious and intended to inform the other elders that he had hired a slime. In response, Darl calmly declared he would tell everyone that Ural was still learning from a beginner's textbook and needed extra guidance in her studies. Darl insisted that a dark mage with a soft spot for cute things could hardly teach her anything worthwhile, yet in the next breath, she contradicted herself, claiming she didn't even like cute things. Someone promptly reminded her about the time she nearly accepted a trinket as a gift. Darl explained it away, saying that it had been a rare magical item. Anyone who failed to notice that would be a fool. As the girls continued to argue, the slime had already begun to yawn. Mark Majiro. Following the incident, the two dark mages and the slime wandered the city streets in search of purpose. Earl recounted a tale from years past, when a colossal spider appeared. In her days as a dark mage, she had seized the monstrous creature with her bare hands. On the other hand, she found the whole affair utterly repulsive. Displeasure flickered across Daryl's face at those words. She chose that moment to remind him how she handled pests during their days at the Magic Academy. He, however, countered with a sly remark, insisting that this was precisely why she used to let him copy her homework, so in the end, they were even. Additionally, Darl mentioned she no longer feared insects and had managed to overcome that anxiety. Upon hearing this, Yarrow decided to put her claim to the test. Intentionally trailing behind Darl and the slime, she leaned in to quietly inform him about the cockroach clinging to her back. The mention alone sent a shiver through Darl, who let out a loud, startled shriek. Apologizing softly, the young woman insisted it was nothing more than a figment of her imagination. Determined to uncover the truth, Darl approached Yarrow, seeking answers about her recent behavior and the reasons behind her watchful gaze. Meeting his concern with a calm smile, Yarrow simply dismissed his suspicion, insisting that paranoia had taken hold of him and she was merely on her way home. In response, Darl asked Arrow where her broom was. Arrow pulled her broom from behind her back, and Darl found himself surprised to see that his acquaintance owned such a complicated broom. At that moment, realization struck Darl. Yarrow had only wanted to tease him, and now she was preparing to leave. Sure enough, she announced her departure right then. It turned out that Ural had set off for Gaigai Station. All the while, the girl couldn't help but relish the thought that leaving Darl behind was the best decision she had made. At this moment, it felt as if she had finally gained the upper hand over him. Dreams of soaring on her own broomstick filled Carol's mind for the next journey. At that very moment, the loudspeaker announced the departure of the bus. Upon hearing this, Gerald prepared to step onto the bus, determined to outdo Darl. At that moment, Darl and the slug peeked around the corner, their eyes fixed intently on Yarrow, surprise clear in their expressions. Darl stood at the edge of the bus steps, his hand braced against the door. With a firm voice, he called out to his friend, urging him to stay careful on the journey ahead. Afterward, the slime bid Earl farewell, leaving the girl blushing furiously with embarrassment. Inside William's workshop, Sliz and Darl lingered, making no move to leave the city just yet. Once Ariel departed, Darl glanced at the city clock, pondering how much time her presence had cost them. Meanwhile, the young woman finished her shopping and turned to Sliz to check whether he had managed to secure his own necessities. Sliz beamed with satisfaction, confirming that he had acquired everything he wanted. Sliz discovered that what he truly craved were candies, though he had also bought a few unnecessary things along the way. After all, saving money took precedence over everything else. As the group continued down the street, they passed a shop that instantly caught Sliz's cheerful attention. With a delighted cry, Sliz dashed into the shop, leaving Darl utterly bewildered. Although both of them had already stepped inside the shop, the little slime gazed around with curious fascination. Shelves and display cases overflowed with all sorts of mechanical creations. The slime's gaze settled on a cluster of small golems, puppet-like constructs animated by magic. Intrigued, the little slime turned to Darl and wondered aloud if it might be possible to control one of these mechanical beings. Darl explained that such a thing could be done, provided the golem in question was not too large. The girl asked the slime if it wanted to give it a try and handed over the staff. Darl encouraged the slime to focus just as it did when using magic, suggesting a bit of fire and a swing of the staff. The slime understood perfectly, grasped the staff, and began to concentrate. With a sweeping motion of his staff, he awakened the robots, causing them to open. A wave of surprise swept through everyone as the robot stirred to life, its joints whirring softly with movement. Mesmerized and excited, the slime reported to its mistress that the robot had begun to move. Amazement filled it at the realization that control had truly been achieved. Meanwhile, Darl instructed the slime to command the robot to perform a specific action. The slime politely requested the robot to wave its hand. The robot obediently complied, then extended its hand toward the slime. Filled with excitement, the slime shook hands with the robot, then turned to Darl and declared with determination a clear intention to purchase the golden one. At that moment, Darl wondered if the slime would be able to purchase this golem. The question caught the slime completely off guard. The realization dawned on Darl that owning a golem was beyond his reach, and a wave of sadness washed over him. Watching the dejected slime, Darl found himself wishing he could take the little creature home. Yet the young woman understood that even a golem this small would demand a hefty price. Carol often imagined how wonderful it would be to create a golem herself, though she lacked the necessary skills. Suddenly, the door behind the counter creaked open, and the shop's owner, an elderly man, appeared. He suggested that the young people build a golem using second-hand materials and assured them that this would make the cost of their new robot much more affordable. The cramped workshop buzzed with excitement as Sliz eagerly embraced the old master's proposal. The thought of bringing a golem to life from scraps filled him with delight. Still, Darl urged him to rein in his enthusiasm and take things slowly. Carol turned to the slime and asked if everything would be all right, since this would cost him most of his money. The slime, however, insisted it was not an issue. Meanwhile, Darl realized that even if the robot was made from scrap, the slime might not have enough cash to cover the cost. Moreover, suspicions began to stir in Darl regarding the shop's previous owner. Just then, the old man remarked how pleased he would be if the boys chose to buy this particular robot. However, he admitted he could not promise the golem would function smoothly. At that moment, certainty settled over Darl. Her suspicions carried weight. The slug's eyes sparkled even more brightly at those words. Observing him, Darl realized that refusal was no longer an option. Accepting her situation, she agreed. The old man then welcomed the slug into his workshop. Just as the old man was about to close the door behind him, Darl asked if she could come inside as well. She was eager to learn the secret behind crafting these golems. The old man, however, refused and explained that if Darl learned his methods, he would lose his livelihood. Disappointment flickered across her face, but she accepted his words, realizing they were only to be expected. The elderly man guided the slime into the workshop. Curiosity sparkled in the slime's gaze as it looked around, its joy tinged with amazement at the new surroundings. Drawing a small pouch filled with sweets, the slime handed it to the old man as if offering a payment. With a gentle smile, the elderly man inquired if this was honestly earned. The slime nodded in affirmation. A gentle smile crossed the old man's face as he reached out to accept what the slime offered him. After all, those coins had been earned through his own hard work. Once these words were spoken, the old man decided it was time to begin. He seated the slime beside him at the table and explained that the first step was to shape the magical clay. Next, he encouraged the slime to imagine the kind of golem it wished to create. Turning back to the old man, the slime wondered aloud whether a golem could work alongside it. The old man assured him that a golem could do anything, as long as it was properly taught. After carefully shaping the clay, the slime announced that it had done everything within its power. The old man finally glanced at the slime's creation and offered his assistance. The slime quietly accepted, while the old man praised its efforts, pointing out that this clay would make an excellent golem. Before long, Sliz made his way to the shop, where Darrow was already waiting for him. The moment Darrow caught sight of Slim, curiosity took hold, and he immediately inquired about how everything had gone and whether the plan had succeeded. Wasting no time on explanations, Slim simply revealed the new golem to him. Gazing upon the magnificent golem, it seemed almost impossible to believe he was fashioned from mere scrap. Every part of the robot gleamed with a finish that suggested carefully selected, top-quality components. As the moment lingered, the old man returned to the shop. Darl approached his grandfather to inquire about the money, prompting the old man to explain that the slime had given him precisely the amount he needed. In that moment, Darl offered the old man heartfelt thanks and asked the slime to convey her gratitude to him as well. With a satisfied grin stretching across his face, Slime clutched the golem in his hands and turned to the old man to express heartfelt gratitude. The old man smiled warmly, expressing his gratitude to the boys for accepting the responsibility of caring for the golem. The thrilling journey came to an end in the land of Slime. Eventually, the group made their way back to Gaya Gaya Station. Darl admitted feeling a bit weary, which kept her from using her broom to fly. Seated across from the slime on the bus, Darl turned to him and asked if he had enjoyed their shopping trip. The slime replied that he had found the whole experience thoroughly delightful. Sliz proudly displayed his collection of candies to the girl. Meanwhile, Darl inquired if he had brought any souvenirs, and Sliz assured him that he had taken everything essential. Casting a satisfied glance at the bag, the slime mentioned picking up a few souvenirs for Pacha and Shiro. Darl wondered if Vlad the villain had managed to snag a bit of that slime as a souvenir. At that moment, a cold wave of dread swept over the slime, as it realized it had completely forgotten to bring a souvenir for the villain. With his head bowed in disappointment, the slime admitted he simply hadn't considered the villain at all. Suddenly, a brilliant idea sparkled within the slime. After pulling the tiny flag from the child's lunch, the slime calmly announced its intention to hand it over to the villain. Drawing a star-shaped souvenir sword, the slime announced its intention to defend Darl's shop with this unusual weapon. The slime received a warning about the dangers of swinging a sword so carelessly and was advised to keep it sheathed. Slight disappointment crossed its face, yet it obediently returned the sword to its scabbard. Someone inquired about the golem's fate, bringing a spark of excitement to Slime's demeanor. Slime replied, explaining that the golem turned out to be the highlight of the entire day.